Good evening, folks. Would you please join me?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, it's so good to hear a robust group. We're live in person, and I want to personally thank you for all coming out to welcome us back. Our first personal meeting. And you certainly have a choice to wear or not wear a mask. The town policy is you don't have to, but it's certainly your prerogative, so feel free to.
Vaccinated persons don't have to.
Excuse me?
Vaccinated persons don't have to.
Vaccinated. Okay, let me go ahead with introducing the board members and staff. At my far right is Shauna Boncher. I always have to stutter. Shauna is our new town planner. So we welcome her to her first live meeting. Next is Amanda Van Laken, planning board member. Next to Amanda is Gary Humes, planning board member. We have remotely joining us Bob LaCourse, planning board member. Myself, Chuck Euler, I'm the chairman of the board. And our other member, Ryan Stachak, is not available. He is out in the Rocky Mountains and he is not able to communicate with us. Hope he's not experiencing the heat the West Coast is having. We also have with us John Robatello, our recording secretary. We have Lance Braybaum representing our engineering group, MRB, and Chris Nadler, who's the planning board attorney. Should there be an emergency, we have to leave the room quickly. Please know where the exits are. And hopefully we will not have an occurrence, but these days you never know. Okay, since there are two continued public hearings this evening, there was no three continued public hearings. There was no advertising required for any of these hearings, so we have no record of publishing of legal notices as required in our regulations. I will now open the floor up to anyone who would like to speak to the board regarding an issue that is not, I stress, not on the agenda. If you'd like to bring something to our attention, now would be the time to do so, either in person or remotely. And if you're remote, please raise your hand. TV.
Yeah. Okay. We're okay with it.
If there are none, we'll move on to our public hearings. And if you look at the agenda, the order is to take Aurora Solar, who is the first hearing this evening. On the interest of the people who are in this room, I think we will go to at the yeah, allowing us to do this, Mr. Plant has allowed us to forego action on his application and move on to an application submitted by Marks Engineering representing Carol Eifert, owner of property 3535 State Route 364. And the applicant would like to seek preliminary subdivision approval and preliminary site plan approval with construction of 2 single-family residences, 116 townhomes, and a dedicated spine road that would run up through the course of the road.
He was sharing.
Let me first, Brendan, before you start, give a little bit of history and background as to how we got here this evening. On March 15th, the town board requested an advisory report from the planning board regarding the applicant's request to rezone 3535 State Route 364 from R120 to a mixed-use overlay, commonly referred to as MUO zoning district. On March 23rd, Mr. Marks of Marks Engineering presented the details of the application in a sketch plan format to the planning board. It was the consensus of the planning board that the proposed use of the property is appropriate for the partial but in this report in no way endorsed the sketch plan as presented at the meeting. I submitted a planning board's advisory report to the town board on March 30th, 2021, reflecting the wishes of the planning board. On April 19th, the town board directed the applicant to prepare and submit an application to the planning board for preliminary site plan approval under a town resolution 2120-092. As directed by town board, Mr. Marks submitted this application in the form of application CPN 21035, which was reviewed by the Planning Review Committee for completeness and referrals on April 12th, and by the Town Environmental Conservation Board on May 6th, 2021. If the preliminary plan should be approved by the planning board, the applicant will return to the town board for its consideration of the rezoning of the property to MEO. Is that clear to everyone? Okay. The public hearing on the preliminary application was opened on May 25th by this board and continued to a meeting which is occurring this evening. The State Environmental Quality Review, which is commonly referred to as SEEKR, had a 30-day review period for identified involved in agencies and ended on Monday, July 12th.
Yep.
2012, that was yesterday. So tonight, to keep some sort of a semblance of order so we can keep moving, and this will be a continuation of the public hearing to review a preliminary subdivision and site plan for Canandaigua Shores project. The applicant, Mr. Marks, will make a presentation of his application, which we allow him to complete in his entirety. The planning board members will then follow up the presentation with comments and questions to the applicant. I will then ask interested parties, whether in person or online, to address his or her comments to the planning board. When recognized, step to the podium, give your name and address. If in the virtual audience, please raise your hand, and when recognized, give us your name and address. In either case, please limit your comments to 3 minutes and try not to be redundant with previous comments given by other attendees. Board members may follow up with a request for clarification. Once everyone that wishes to address the board has done so, the chair will ask the applicant to follow up with any responses tonight or wait to respond at a continuation of the hearing at a subsequent meeting. Once the public and the applicant has spoken, the planning board will close tonight's proceedings with any follow-up questions or requests for additional information that the applicant should provide before the hearing is continued in the future. Action items will be set, and the hearing will then be continued to a date to be mutually agreed upon using a continuation resolution. So that's how we're going to proceed. So I would appreciate your patience and cooperation as Mr. Marks makes his presentation.
If I may, before that, Mr. Chairman, I would remind you and the members that the rules of procedure allow for the chair to remove anybody from the audience if they can't show proper respect and courtesy during the presentation or during the question and answer period. Looking at this crowd, I'm sure that won't be an issue, but I just wanted to remind you and the board members of that option.
Thank you. Mr. Marks.
Good evening. Yeah, Brendan Marks, from Marks Engineering. First, I'd like to thank you all for coming out tonight and expressing interest in this project. As we introduced last time at the planning board, as Chuck noted, I'll give a brief background, then I'll go through some of the, address some of the comments that we had at the last meeting and some of the comments that were brought up by the public. So the project is proposed 116 residential units, townhome residential units in 29 buildings. There's also 2 single-family residential units on the top of the site, on the eastern side of the site, at the town of Canandaigua Hopewell town line. We're also proposing 2,000 lineal feet of dedicated road, which will be dedicated to the town of Canandaigua. There'll be private access driveways to each of the townhome units north and south of that dedicated road. These units are going to be marketed towards the young professionals, the empty nesters, the people that are selling their estate and then trying to downsize and need a place to stay, whether they're snowbirds or they're the residents, permanent residents of Canandaigua. Some of the comments that we had at the last meeting was, and I'll just go down through them, and I outlined this in the letter on July 1st to the town planning board, was sidewalks, crosswalks. We have added sidewalks on both north and south side of the dedicated street. We've also added 2 crosswalks, one at the kiosk area and one at the gazebo area for pedestrian access through the site. These will be raised crosswalks, so they'll control traffic speed. I mean, it's going to be a 30-mile-an-hour road, but you don't want to hit these raised crosswalks at 30 miles an hour. We provided a landscape plan with the set. We've also provided this landscape rendering and some perspective views of the project. That was one of the questions of the board was, how is this going to look? So if you scroll down, there's some perspective views. The one on the left there is from the lake. It's at about 100 feet off of the lake surface. That's what it would look like. And on the right, it would be like if you were flying over from the back from County Road 18. Some of the building materials was the questions, what are these going to look like? We provided pictures of the project that is being completed by the same developer, ATL Contractors, in the town of Milo and Penn Yan. These will have the similar appearances of the Cuca Shores development in Penn Yan and Milo. Vinyl siding, earth tones, cedar shake gables, townhome appearances, pretty standard of most townhomes in the area. We've added some fire hydrant locations. I'm not going to elaborate on that anymore. In terms of trash pickup, these will be toters. Private toters are stored in the garage of each townhome unit. One of the comments that Gary had was the intersections of the driveways, if there was any way to stagger the private driveways on opposite sides of the dedicated road. We let topography and elevation of the site, and then also there's a steep slope region in the center of the site. We let that drive the layout of this site. We did not think that aligned entrances opposite the dedicated road would present a safety concern. It may present a little bit of confusion for traffic. However, not a safety concern because this is a low traffic, low speed road. And if we were to align them, some of the entrances would be at a skew angle and would cause a safety concern because of blind spots. In addition to the driveways, I also want to talk about traffic because I know this will come up. We have provided a traffic impact statement for the project, and it shows the generated traffic for the development and the traffic that's on 364 and County Road 18. And it does not merit a dedicated turning lane on 364. They say it marginally warrants one on 364, a dedicated turning lane. However, it's only in peak time, not AM time. And it is the level of service of C, which is generally the level of where you may tip to a dedicated turning lane. As for green space, we are proposing 40% green space, which aligns with the mixed use overlay zoning criteria. In terms of wetland and streams, it's been identified that there may be some wetlands and streams on this site. So we have gone further with Environmental Resources LLC to identify and delineate or identify possible wetlands on the site. He's walked the site. They have identified a small wetland in the southwestern corner. It's approximately 1/10 of an acre in size. It is non-jurisdictional in terms of DEC or the Army Corps of Engineers, not mapped. We have solicited information from the Army Corps of Engineers for jurisdiction on that wetland. If it comes back non-jurisdictional, it will basically not enforced or controlled by anyone. So therefore, we will be able to remove it. There is a ditch that crosses the site from north to south, just about where we have that stormwater management pond. The ditch is dry. It's dry right now. We sent a picture in showing how the water doesn't flow in it. It is not a classified stream by the DEC, and it's, again, non-jurisdictional at this point. In terms of stormwater, this project is required to be covered by the New York State DEC Speedies permit, which is like any other development project that it goes over an acre of disturbance. The DEC guideline outlines the requirements for water quality treatment, water quality detention on the site. That is a state standard that we have to meet. We are meeting this requirement by providing dry swale areas that will capture runoff from each townhome. They're on the opposite sides of the private driveways and adjacent to the back of some of the units. These dry swales are areas where water will collect. It'll filter down through 18 to 24 inches of sand media and then be conveyed out to the storm sewer system. That filtration practice is similar to what we would use to filter wastewater. It removes nutrients and it clarifies the stormwater running off the site. There's also a large detention facility at the bottom that's going to retain stormwater off the site and reduce it from existing conditions. So right now, as the site sits, there's about 94 CFS coming off the existing conditions of the site. We're proposing 50 cubic feet per second coming off the site. That's a 46% reduction in stormwater flows for the 100-year storm. So, and then also want to cover some density issues. The site density of this project is going to be 2.86 residential units per acre. Similar developments in this town and city would be Villas of Canandaigua, which is about 2.75 units per acre. Roseland Townhomes, which is about 3.4 units per acre. And then Creekview Apartments, which is in the same mixed use overlay, is 3.38 units per acre. So, and again, we're proposing 2.8 units per acre. There was also concern about the development of the Cupid Shores project. That project has been going on for approximately 2 years. It's a large project, it's 82 units. They're moving very quickly. They've worked through the COVID restrictions. The town of Milo code enforcement officer has also wrote a letter in support of the project, or in support of their progress on Cupid Shores. With that, I guess I'll just want to reinforce a couple facts. This is a mixed use zone. It's zoned for this development. The town of Canandaigua comprehensive plan specifically states they would like to add 1,300 residential units to the project, to the town. So this will fit 118 of them.
Just one correction, Brendan, it is not zoned MUO yet.
I'm sorry, mixed use overlay. Well, it is, yes.
Okay, it has to still go through town board approval after this operation. Okay,
So designated as a node for development.
clarified.
I think you're both right.
Let's open it up to the board. Larry, do you have any issues or concerns or questions?
I think my three kind of concerns here a little bit are one to do with traffic and transportation. When you said you did a study,
Yes.
or had a study, is that report available for that? I'm seeing it on the site.
Yes, it is.
Sean,
Is it there? That one's not. I see it.
I've seen it, I've read it. This is our code.
no, that just came into that.
Yeah. So I didn't see it. So can you again kind of summarize what that report said and who conducted it?
SRF.
Brendan, do you want to step to the mic?
SRF, transportation engineers, they did this, or traffic engineers, they did the TIS, the traffic impact study. Basically, what it does is it studies the proposed development and the traffic on Route 364 and 18 and the proposed trips that is going to generate both AM and PM peak hours, which is generally 8 to 9 or 4 to 5. Now I don't have it in front of me, but they classified the 364 as being the more congested intersection as a level of service of C. And generally that is the cutoff where you start to look at traffic control. And that's only on the peak hour traffic, peak PM hour traffic. AM was not an issue. So they basically, this is going to come down to the New York State Department of Transportation on their what they want to enforce on here. on this development in this intersection because it's DOT's road. It does not fully warrant a dedicated turn lane.
You said DOT needs to, so what is the final process to go through before DOT renders some sort of a decision? Is this report given to them? Do they study it?
Yes,
And then
yes.
they come back with their determination?
Yes.
How long does that typically take? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? whatever?
6
Whatever it
months,
Yeah.
6 months.
takes, could take that long.
But just for the record, as part of the coordinated review under seeker, we did coordinate with DOT, giving them the opportunity to comment on said project. I don't recall if they've submitted comments or not. But-
We met the resident engineer on the site, actually went over the intersection with him. Basically verbally what he said to me, and not that he did approval or anything, he said that it looks like it's a good option for this development.
Can you clarify the turn lane is a good option?
No, the intersection, the location for the intersection and what we were proposing. We did not request that we put a turn lane.
To be clear, that dialogue may sometimes occurs much later in the process.
They don't really want to see it until seekers put a turn lane.
Yeah, a lot of times they won't grant their opinion until after the environmental review gets done. But for the record, we did coordinate with them. The time period has gone through. I don't believe we received any comments from DOT as part of that coordinated review.
All right, and in terms of wetlands, so there's some streams or, I'm not sure how streams might be the appropriate term here. There has been some wet areas, all right, identified, right? So what is that process now? If you said you're going to move to the Army Corps of Engineers to get permission, whether that is
Correct, yeah.
that's process. So what is that process? How does that go through and what's been initiated in that process so far?
So we've walked the site with a wetland specialist. He's identified, like I say, the one small area, about 1/10 of an acre in the southwest corner of the site as a potential wetland area. And then also he identified the ditch that goes from the north to south. They're non-jurisdictional at this point, meaning that no one has mapped them, no one has taken ownership of them, no one is going to make the requirements of what you're going to do with them. Now, the process is to submit to a pre-construction notification to the Army Corps of Engineers and also New York State DEC for clarification of what they would like to see, how this wetland and ditch area would be treated. And when they may come back saying this is a non-jurisdictional wetland or ditch, and they may, at that point, they have no jurisdiction or enforcement requirements.
All right, and my last question, I guess.
Gary, can you speak into the microphone?
Same with you, Brendan. Sounds like they want both of you guys. It sounds like you're loud enough.
Okay, all right, my last question has to do with kind of the timeline for the project. I know there's been some concern and reference to the Milo project that took a long time. What is the estimated timeline from start to finish on this project?
I would assume it'd be similar to the Future Shores project, should be 2.5 to 3 years.
That's the initial second round to having paved roads, done, I'm out of here. Type of thing. Is that what we're considering in this
Yes,
project? I don't know who you're looking at.
sorry. But yes,
So 2.5 to 3 years.
Yep.
Okay, that's, yeah, I think, the other comments that we've made previous in terms of the sidewalks and stuff like that, I think you guys quickly done that. I think the landscaping plan has been submitted. First blush looks okay to me, so, but it, I'm gonna turn it over to me.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate you handing the mic over. Here, speak loudly. One question from a follow-up from a previous meeting. We had talked about the halfway of the road, and I may have missed that in your summary, but there was a concern of kind of just having everything straight shooting into the lake. So Could you talk a little bit about that and
Yeah.
your assessment of that?
Yeah, so we do offset the road at the Hopewell Canandaigua Town line. There's approximately 70-foot horizontal offset with two 300-foot curves. And that's you can see at the eastern side of the site. Then there's also two raised sidewalks, approximately third points on that new dedicated road. Those raised sidewalks will be similar as you would see on college campuses or something like that, 6 inches raised. And and they're well identified and you would not want to go over them fastly. Fastly, that's not a word.
I'm picking up what you're putting in. So, okay, I think you covered my other questions.
Bob, are you out there in TV land?
I'm
Any
here.
questions?
Thanks, Chuck. Yeah, I do. Brennan, thanks for answering those questions I asked about the garbage. The fire hydrants, I assume are going to be there anyways one day. I don't see them on the
I
plan.
think you're muted.
Can you hear me?
All right, well, while we're waiting for
Can you hear me?
Bob to connect, let me get on the record that the latest revision that we have of the plans for this project was submitted on July 1st, correct, Brennan? And I think the board first saw it on July 6th on our website. So that's the latest plans we're looking at, correct?
That's correct.
This does involve a 4-lot subdivision. The subdivision being created by the spine road that runs through the middle of the property. So it'd be 1 lot to the north, 1 lot to the south, and the 2 individual single-family lots.
That's
that would
correct.
be created. There are 29 buildings with 4 units each of rental apartments. What is the size of each of the buildings? What would be the dimensions? I couldn't see on any of the plans.
Approximately, each unit is approximately 1,600, 1,800 square feet, depending on 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom. So,
Per unit.
yeah,
So what would your footprint be of each building?
It's about 8,000 square feet footprint. No,
just, yeah, be under that, yeah. It's around 7,000.
Okay, for the record, our MUO has a restriction of 20,000 square feet maximum building area.
per building.
Per building, yes. It would be very helpful to the board and to me personally if we had a delineation of the constrained lands as defined in our NRI. Looking at your existing plan, it's awfully tough to discern where the wetlands are, where the woods are, where the steep slopes are. And I think for the purposes of calculating the open space required, it would be very helpful if you could take that existing contour plan and locate on there the actual natural resources that we have as defined in our NRI. And then we would take that area and we would deduct that from the total area of the site. And then your obligation would be to provide 40% open space of the remaining area. Now, your plan as proposed, you mentioned you have 40% green space. Does that include steep slopes, wetlands, floodplains, woods?
Yes,
Well, I think what I'm saying, Brennan, you're gonna have to go through a calculation to redo that. Can you find Bob out there, Doug?
Yeah, I could actually
Hear
hear
me?
him fine. It's your volume in this room.
Okay.
Bob's having his whole separate meeting.
Him and Doug. So again, you understand where I'm coming from? Brennan,
as a requirement of the MU zoning.
MUO zoning requires
Okay, so-
40% open space devoid or minus the constrained lands.
Okay. I know we do that for conservation subdivision.
It's required in the MUO also.
It's remarkably similar language, but not identical to our conservation subdivision language. I think, Shauna, at some point, we may have to have a specific zoning determination on this issue. Just to make sure that everything's in full compliance. But I think the starting point is where Chuck just sort of pointed it at and getting a a specific delineation.
Let's know where the constrained lands are, and then we can go from there as far as what's, obviously the constrained lands have to be preserved, and then it's 40% of open space on top of that. It's part of the regs. Lance, did we get any comments on the seeker from invited or interested parties on our request to be designated lead agency?
So we did coordinate the planning board at their May 25th meeting, began the seeker coordinated review, which is basically taking all the application materials that you've received and forwarded out to all the involved and interested agencies. Those agencies, they have some jurisdiction, some kind of an approval, some kind of standing associated with the project. My record does not indicate that we've received any, other than the comments from certain staff members. I don't believe we've received anything from any of the outside agencies in response to this being provided. I do know that MRB Group also works with the town of Hopewell. And during their review of your application that was forwarded to them, the planning board did have some concerns regarding traffic, did have some concerns regarding drainage. I think more formally, they were hoping to submit something through the town board and may be coming and may not be coming, but I told them I would at least, for the record here tonight, based on what we heard at the meeting, outline some of their concerns. Traffic, visual impact, and I think some buffering between townhomes and the single family homes that are proposed, and also their border. And then I believe drainage was the other concern.
Speaking of Hopewell, where do you stand, Brendan, with the town of Hopewell intersection?
On July 26th, we're gonna hear the preliminary subdivision site plan.
So I guess this has to be coordinated, obviously, because we've got a spine road that runs from Canandaigua into Hopewell. If one application was approved and the other was not,
I can clarify.
I think they have to be conditional.
Right.
That if they come first, theirs is conditional upon ours, because otherwise we can't have the spine road hanging out there by itself, because it would be 116 townhomes on it.
So for
I think we'd also like the respective highway superintendents to say, yeah,
right. So
we've
if I-
got a plan, or we've got an agreement that one team will plow in this direction, the other will plow in this direction. and whatnot.
So ultimately, this application, Doug, if you need,
No, I think we should be able to hear off if we want.
okay, want to test it?
Okay, yeah, I'm about done talking.
I do want to, just when I see if Bob can be heard.
Hear you, can you hear me?
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Hey, Bob.
I've been here.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks.
All right. Hey, Brandon, if I may, first of all, thanks for answering the questions about the garbage cans and all that. And I assume the hydrants will be placed on the map in the future. And my questions to you are, it appears, I can't see the map right now, but the southern units have a buffer of trees next to them, which are natural, that are still there. They're there currently today, but on the 1 and 2 units, it looks like you're putting in landscaping. Why can't you leave the trees that are there now as a buffer? Because there's a lot of trees there right now. That's one question. And also on your rendering of the overview, it looked like the roofs were white. I don't think they're gonna be white, but it'd be better if they were a darker color. So that's basically the questions I had right now for you on that. And if, yeah, for now, Brennan.
Yeah, we'll look at the buffering and the bordering of the natural vegetation. The rendering, yeah, those were just shadow figures for the structures. There was no intention for building colors in those, so.
Yeah, I understand, but yeah, from the lake side, it would be better if those were a darker color blending in with the trees and stuff.
Yep, there'll be an earth tone color.
But thank you. Yeah, and it'd be great if you could leave those existing trees there, so we don't have to take down those trees and at least put a buffer between the road and those units.
Look into it.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
That 1 and 2. And is actually, Brandon, is 1 and 2 actually on the top of the knoll there, where 3 and 4 goes down into the dip?
no, actually, they're gonna be recessed. And they'll be approximately, 1 second here. I want to say 6 to 7 feet below the East Lake Road.
Yeah, that would help with the site, but it would also help to keep those trees there. And plus it would help with the runoff,
Yeah.
not tearing up the trees right there on the road.
1 and 2 units would be 7 feet lower than the New York State Route 364.
It'd be great if we could keep them there and keep the drainage.
Yeah, I actually want to clarify a little bit of that drainage, Bob. The low point of the site is approximately 200, 300 feet off of the New York State Route 364. And that low point is where the ditch has been noted. And that's approximately 19 feet lower than 364. So it goes down 19 feet to a low point and then goes up the hill. So there's no opportunity for water to run straight down this new road and then back up on 364. It'd have to be a 19-foot swell, which would be.
I understand it totally, and I'm glad you said that, because I walked that property and I was like, I'm going down, down and down before I go up again. And that's where I would assume there might be even a retention pond behind 29 or something like that. Or where's the water run? Does it run to the north or the south there?
So we're providing a progressive treatment and storage of the stormwater as we go down the hill with these dry swales. And the retention, as you work your way down the hill, kind of like going down a set of stairs, is a more effective way to retain the volume of water versus trying to do it all at the bottom of the hill next to building 29. And then also we have to preserve water drainage coming onto the site from the south and then off the site to the north. There's only 2 to 4 feet of head difference north to south at that lower area. We would not be able to get a pond big enough to capture all of it. That's why we've provided these dry swells stepping down this project.
Thank you, Brandon.
Anything else, Bob?
No, I think he answered my other questions about the kiosks. They got sidewalks there that Gary brought up. Then, yeah, sidewalks. I'd like to know a little bit more about those 2 houses. If we're going to approve the plan with the houses, we haven't seen anything about those. But that's it.
We can provide elevation scales
Those going to
Thank
be for rent or for sale?
for sale.
Brandon.
Anything else, Bob?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry,
I
Mr.
want
Chairman.
to get on to our guest with the.
I just wanted to add a little bit about the Hopewell dialogue. So just for the record, to make sure it's clear. So this application is required to have a secondary access point due to the circumstances are proposed. They can't have the building sprinklered if need be, but ultimately it needs a secondary access point. So the project as proposed currently is showing a town road going through Hopewell, which would require an approval from the town of Hopewell over that road. Ultimately, all that's needed is an emergency access road that would be owned and maintained under an easement to the applicant. And that would require an approval from Hopewell, but not to the same magnitude that a town board road and dedicated road would. So assuming that the plans can be modified in a way to show a hammerhead at the end of this road, however the road alignment ultimately gets conveyed, that would be what the town of Canandaigua will be responsible for. And that would meet the fire code requirements and town code requirements, because that gives them a turning ability for plows in the wintertime. The emergency road would most likely be a gated access road only for emergency vehicle scenarios. The application that's before Hopewell is for a subdivision of single-family homes. I don't recall how many. They are going to go through a very similar process. You will also be an involved agency due to the circumstances that they are presented with, which is ultimately a road connection. And then also sanitary sewer connection runs through the town of Canandaigua, which is the Canandaigua Lake County Sewer District's responsibility in review. So that application will come to you. They'll be going through a very similar process. But ultimately, as part of our approval, Chuck, to your point earlier, yes, if we get to that approval process and this board is at a point where they're looking to make approvals, there would have to be some contingencies on either of the 2 boards. But being that this is a phased subdivision project, meaning you get a preliminary, you have to go back to the town board for zoning and then come back for final. Some point in between that preliminary and potentially final approval, Hopewell will be potentially in a position to do something similar granting of a preliminary approval if they get to that point.
Yeah, there's no question that the two projects in both municipalities are dependent on each other. And their intent is for them both to go. However, we can provide an alternative means of egress for fire or turnaround for Hopewell that would satisfy the building code and the zoning codes.
One other thing before I go to our guest, the spine road that we were talking about, you show it as 20 feet wide. But yet on your detail sheets, you show cross sections of various standards the town uses in its subdivision streets. I would think this road, given the potential traffic and what it will serve and being a through road, should be designed under the complete streets requirements of our subdivision. And if you would earmark that particular, you have the detail for you?
I do.
At the bottom is the complete streets detail, so that would be the applicable detail that would apply to this project, which is a 22-foot cartway, a 5-foot sidewalk, or excuse me, bike path on either side, and then, as you said previously, the sidewalks off the cartway. So certainly keep that in mind and considering future plans.
You're right. We have it designed right now as a subdivision road. And we'll look at the option of redesigning it.
Yeah,
to
I think the
complete
volume
street.
of traffic and the type of road that's going to be complete street certainly is one. Okay, let's open it up to the group. You've been patiently waiting. Thank you very much. I would ask that you come to the podium, you give us your name and address, you make your comments and address them to the board. And as I said, try to limit it to 3 minutes if possible, and please don't be redundant. Name and address, sir.
Good evening, Chairperson Worley. I'm Mark Colbert. I live at 3596 Otishiana Point, across from the project. Evening, board members Van Laken, board members, of course, Humes, and of course, planner Bunchak and manager Finch, as well as Secretary Rocatella. I'm before you tonight representing my family, but I also have with me tonight 891 signatures, both electronic and in hard copy, as of midday today, and more than a couple dozen more since that time, quickly approaching 1,000 signatures from the community and those who travel to enjoy Canandaigua. They all clearly feel that this project is not true to the town's priorities and commitment to protecting Canandaigua Lake. I'd be happy to read you the petition, but I know that is on record at this point. If you'd like me to, I can.
Has it changed at all from what was initially?
We intentionally have
Posted.
left it exactly
I
as it
think
started.
we've all read it,
Great.
and we certainly accept it as a submission.
I'd like to add the signatures to record if we could as well.
Thank you.
In addition to the submission of the petition, from what I'm seeing tonight, I don't see significant changes that would change the opinion of the public opinion that we've seen thus far. And at 891, we're sitting at approximately almost 10% of the population of the town. So I think there's still a strong sense of concern with this project. Adding to the points of the petition from my side, traffic and safety. We mentioned peak hours of concern today. I can tell you that I exit during non-peak hours of concern, and my driveway / road may contain 20 to 30. And I can tell you that my wait time to exit my property currently for the Route 364 could extend as long as 10 minutes in the morning. And that's considered a non-peak time. That's with existing traffic that's there now. So when it comes to traffic and safety, I too have very significant concerns. With more than 452 plus proposed vehicles, it's not only the concern with traffic, but we know that this will have an impact already, as we've seen with Rose Park. Prior to making Canandaigua my permanent residence, I spent more than 20 years in the Fishers Fire Department. While in the fire department, we followed multiple traffic studies and experienced some of the most dangerous stretches of the community within Ontario County. We learned that turns, medians, and frequent stops to lead to stronger levels of safety. Making sure the facilities also handle modern equipment is also critical. Apparatus will need to be able to efficiently and smoothly access the property. Additional to the traffic concern is traffic calming. And I know that this is something that the planning board is familiar with, but if not, I'm happy to give you studies related to that. What does traffic calming do and mean? It improves the feel of the street towards that residential sense. It enhances the aesthetic value and sense of nature, reduces crime, balances transportation needs between pedestrian traffic, bike traffic, automobile traffic. In doing so, by alternatives, improves air quality and noise levels, and in the end, decreases fuel consumption and improves environmental conditions. This project, with its nearly straight 2,000-foot road with a 200-foot elevation change, only brings risk, cost, and burden to the community. The environmental risks here are massive. This property is far from dry, and I can tell you that from firsthand experience. Just the water concerns of runoff alone are enormous. Over the past weeks, I have walked the property, and I would ask that the planning board do the same if you've not already. It is a wonderful walk, and you'll see that the property is actually teeming with wildlife. Saw something that resembled a crayfish even there yesterday, depending on the time of day that you go across. Nearly 1/3 of this property remains wet most of the time, and the area identified as wetland is likely much larger than identified by engineers. Every inch of water which comes onto this project represents as much as 1 million gallons of water. As I walked the lower third of this property, I was able to measure from 2 inches to 7 inches of water as recent as yesterday. The ditch that we talk about has plenty of water, and I can tell you that until you get into about 1,000 feet off the road, as you walk, you'll see water pool around your feet. This is millions of gallons of water. Once the land is stripped, where will it go? We know it'll represent additional flooding in the community. What happens to the tributaries on the property? The property is teeming with the wildlife, as I mentioned. Where will they go? The golf course? Blue-green algae. We know this is a problem, but we also know that blue-green algae originates from a combination of environmental factors, including nutrients, temperature, sunlight, ecosystem, disturbance, and water chemistry. We know it is heavily impacted by the impact of farmland on the waterways. If a 30+ acre filter is eliminated, we'll see a direct connection from the large farms to the east with a straight shot toward the lake. What I've attempted to do is what you've asked for tonight. So I applaud that. I've attempted to compare it, and I know that folks in Canandaigua can only make decision on Canandaigua, but I implore you to take a look at everything around it. When you take a look at the consideration of blue-green algae, and I'm happy to give copies of this to the board as well, directly east of this project, which is uphill from this, is a 95-acre plus farm that with a 2,000-foot straight road creates a nice funnel straight towards the lake with all of those nutrients. We see a direct connection to that, and that does create a large concern. Algae blooms not only do harm to our family and our pets, but they also risk having a dramatic impact on our property values. Imagine what it would be like if nobody was swimming in September. This design appears to only put the lake at greater risk.
Sir, could you kind of wrap it up a little bit if you've got,
Almost done.
you've got to do your, conclusions? Thank you.
I would like to iterate and expand upon the residential Lake District concerns. Trees along the road are a fantastic idea. However, let's note that this project sits nearly 200 feet above the lake. That's 20 stories. The multifamily portion sits 10 stories above the lake. Think of the other projects of half of this height and exposure. Bristol Harbor, the hotels at the north, and the North Shore landings that are happening at the north end of the project. This project will be clearly visible from the lake, all the way from the west side, easily visible. So I would like to again indicate that this should follow more of the residential Lake District parameters. If we look at many other parts of the town, we can see where they have been expanding the RLD to encompass terrain like this. Finally, I would like to add the emphasis of the changes being voiced through the town comprehensive plan. In the last meeting I sat in on, the emphasis was placed on agriculture and environment, two items which can be heavily emphasized on this property. The need to housing appeared to be de-emphasized, and it would seem to be more appropriate for other parts of the town. That comprehensive plan has a meeting next week for continued revision. I would request that the planning board not approve this project in any form.
Thank you.
I'm Neil Atkins, and I'm representing the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Association tonight. Share your name again, please. Neil Atkins. Yeah. The Watershed Association supports responsible design, review, development, and opposes any development that affects water quality of Canandaigua Lake. We have some concerns with the preliminary site plan as presented for the town, for the Canandaigua Shores development. We believe that the proposed multi-use overlay zone has a number of requirements to be met before the rezoning is accomplished. The application indicates that 40% open space includes drainage swales and setbacks. However, the MUO zone provides that the 40% that this quotes does not include constrained lands, which includes floodplains, freshwater wetlands, slopes 15 degrees or greater, ridge lines, shorelines, maximum of 5 acres of woodland per lot. Open space also does not include driveways, parking spaces, aisles, dumpster enclosures, drainage facilities, or an area to be used for outdoor storage of materials. That's from your code 220-33, section E4.
And
Yes.
Neil, we made that, the applicant aware of that.
Okay. We're aware of it.
He is too now.
We believe that there's a lack of open space protection. We believe that also that the MUO allows for one use on a site. Your code 220-33 E2. The plots of the single-family estate homes are located on and should be subdivided from a parcel that is being evaluated for them rural rezoning. And these lots should not be considered in the open space in the MUO. The estate homes could be serviced by a road from County Road 18 ending in the cul-de-sac. Multifamily units could then be serviced by the road accessing 364. The applicant has indicated that they will field delineate wetlands. We should encourage the town of Canandaigua to hire a wetland inspector to verify the wetland delineation. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hannah Coney from Tishiana Point, directly across from the proposed building site. I want to submit Hannah Coney. H-A-N-N-A-H. Yep. I would like to submit a letter that's from Kevin Olbaney for the Watershed Program Manager from the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Council. I won't read through every point, but I believe that the points that he presented are very important to the wetlands that were discussed earlier. And the first bullet point is that there are critical tributary streams that drain to the lake that need to be taken into account as part of this development. This drainage network needs to be protected and buffered, and the current development does not do this adequately. There needs to be 100-foot buffers on the various stream segments that are shown below. The streams are in blue and brownish line. That is the 100-foot distance on the branch that runs south to north. Currently, there are townhouses and a stormwater pond slated for this area. There are potentially federally regulated wetlands in this low area, and the NWI mapping is very rough and should not be used to determine if there are wetlands there. It would be wise to require a wetland delineation along with this section. The tributaries that run east to west should also be adequately buffered to protect their integrity. All stream segments should remain daylighted and should not be put into a pipe unless there is a road crossing. The overall vegetative removal of the site is a very high percentage. There needs to be a higher priority given to maintaining and enhancing the current vegetation, greatly reducing the area of disturbance. Green infrastructure provisions need to be taken into account. And green space should not be the conversion of forested area to manicured lawns, but maintaining and enhancing open space areas in a more natural state. There are also lastly flood issues downstream that need to be taken into account as part of this development. There's a map on the one that I provided that has the highlighted colors, but I can email it.
Yes, would you please email it to the town planner in the morning?
Hannah, we are aware of this email. It's on our website.
Okay.
And so certainly appreciate you bringing it to our attention, and certainly we respect the thoughts and feelings of Kevin.
Put it in the record.
Good evening all. My name is Rob Gray. I live on Thorndale Beach, which is about a mile south of the proposed development. I have a number of concerns, but only 3 minutes, so I have to be quick about this.
Oh, boy.
Think about County Road 18 that was washed out and unusable due to an unexpected flood problem. County Road 18 was well constructed, but somebody goofed. And downstream from County Road 18, a lot of severe flooding took place on lake property. Now, that wasn't a one-time thing. It happened again near Crystal Beach. County Road 1 is a steep uphill road. Somehow, the 100-year storm dumped a lot of water in that area, came down with a lot of damage to Crystal Beach homes and the cottages. So there's 2 strikes. Let's not have 3 strikes and we're out. So water treatment, water control, storm flooding is a major concern. The other one is public safety. I don't see any reason against not to have a left turning lane, both at the top on County Road 18 and also at the bottom on 364. A little extra money, it's going to be a valuable expenditure if someday somebody is suing you for not providing that. But it will be public health that's a concern. Lake health is a concern. 2 big items that should concern all of us here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bob Kunin. I am the managing member of 3627 East Lake Road LLC, along with my brother and my sister. We inherited the property from our parents. We've been there 63 years. The wetland, well, first of all, we have
Could you
about,
speak up, Val? Yeah.
we have about 55, 60 acres that borders this parcel on the south. And I can tell you that approximately 2/3 of that area drains through the 10th acre in question. I'm here to seriously demand that our riparian rights be preserved. That any change in the flow gradient is going to affect flow volume, flow speed, flow path, all kinds of things through the lower 30 or so acres on our northwest corner of our property. And like I say, we are going to vehemently protect our riparian rights. A couple other things I've heard come up this evening. I don't know why the town would want to accept a deeded road that they have to maintain and all that other stuff. It makes no sense to me. I know I live in the town of Middlesex, and the town of Middlesex will not accept any road deeds, period. Why do they want to take on the extra maintenance? The safety issue of access from emergency vehicles. I haven't seen anything that addresses response time, because I know that this area is further away from the Crystal Beach Fire Department. And it certainly isn't any closer in a road trip from the fire department up there on 247 and 5 and 20. I think that's Hope Up, part of Hope Up. Ambulance response time. Again, you can create the greatest access road, but if I can't get there in time, I have seen nothing in the way of estimation of response times. And just overall aesthetic to the community. As long as we've been there, we've seen things change relatively slowly. I certainly don't want to see any of these people that spend their lives fortunes on Tiziana Point and other places all of a sudden have their property value compromised because of something as unsightly as a housing development. Our property is pretty much all in trees. We intend to preserve it that way. And that's been the intent of our parents when they left it to us. We can't, by agreement with our parents and take the deed restrictions and as a result of their wills, we can't subdivide it. We can't do anything to it unless we want to just plain abandon it. And like I say, we will vehemently protect our riparian rights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Mary Marable from 3520 State Route 364 and 3512 Sandy Beach. Everybody's pretty much talked about the same issues I have with wetlands and environmental issues. But what I hear over and over is we walked the land a few times. We walked it once. So what? That can change in a matter of hours from dry to running over its banks, which I've seen. Or the other way around. It can be wet one day and the next week it's completely dry. So you can't look at it at one time and say, that's the definition of the project. And I also would like to mention that why is there a dedicated left turn lane at 364 and 18? And a quarter of a mile down the road, it's not worth having one. It doesn't make sense.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience?
My name is John Frank. I live at 3560 Otisiana Point. I think we all are interested in making the right decision on this plan. And in doing so, I think we have to ask ourselves, what is the most important asset that we have in our community? Some might say, well, our people. Well, certainly our people are a valuable asset, no question about it. But why are the people here? Why did they choose to live here? Why did they choose to buy here, invest here? I say it's because of the lake. Some people might say, well, the most valuable asset we have is our business district. Well, absolutely, the business district is essential to the well-being of our community. It provides jobs, income. But then you have to ask yourself, well, why is the business district where it is? Why did they begin building it there 100 years ago? It's because of the lake. The most valuable asset we have is the lake. So we have to say, well, now, if we accept this proposal, then does the proposal, the subdivision, the apartment complex offer more advantages than disadvantages to the community? Is it a win for Canandaigua? Or is it a loss? Well, certainly it's a win for the developers. 116 units at round numbers, $2,000 a month is a $232,000 monthly income and nearly $3 million a year of income from rent. That's certainly a benefit to the developers. But does that advantage also transfer to a benefit to the lake?
Sir, 30 seconds left.
I'll give you a minute.
Thank you. The lake is the most valuable asset we have. We need to protect it. We have the Watershed Council. We have the Watershed Association. We have the Canandaigua Lake Trust Fund. We need to use those resources to enhance and enforce the quality of our watershed. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Hi, I'm Kathy Baxter. I actually have 4 properties. 2 on County Road on Lincoln Hill off of County Road 18 and 2 down County Road 11. Concerned about the lake is number 1, but traffic, I'd like to ask the engineers when the traffic study was done. What month was it done in?
We'll find that out.
Because
They can look it up, but they can tell us.
obviously the traffic changes seasonally. I can tell you that going from our properties on Lincoln Hill down County Road 18 to go back towards the town of Gorham, it can take me upwards of 10 minutes to turn onto 364 already. You add these homes to it, we will likely end up with a traffic light at County Road 18 at the very least. And I think we obviously need extra lanes on 364 turn lanes to access this property. Otherwise, you're going to have people getting rear-ended. Regarding the stormwater runoff, I'm not sure
how you plan on any of the stormwater getting into that retention pond when it's gonna be going straight down the road? Just an observation. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Holding the spot for you. We're holding a spot for you.
About the umbrella, in case it rains again. And Bus Cunin, my brother spoke earlier about our property to the south. As he said, we expect to defend our riparian rights. I'd like to comment more on something I haven't heard anyone speak of, other than peripherally. It seems that it's likely that many of the residents here, if not year-round, at least seasonally, will be college students, less than a mile down the road. There will be a tremendous amount of traffic, students going back and forth. The safety of students, just think of the students alone. There's no place for them to go. There are no sidewalks along 364. The bike lanes are totally inadequate as they are. The traffic is already too full for bicyclists, much less pedestrians. And I think we're going to see a lot of that. And I think that potentially you're putting a lot of people at risk, particularly the college students who, they also enhance the community that Mr. Frank spoke to earlier in terms of the business of the community. So I like to just propose an alternative for consideration. That this, I understand that the developers have interest in making money. I understand that. I like to make money. But it seems in terms of the community, one thing we don't have on the east side of the lake basically is a county park. There are things labeled county parks like Deep Run, and I forgot the name of the other place along the road, but they're just access point driveways to the lake. Here, we could have a county park like there was on the west side of the lake in the town and in the county. It would both enhance the community. It would maintain the property in terms of its health, environmental health, and at the same time also then tie in with, sorry about that, would tie in with the community college because they could then also do continuing land studies and environmental studies as this area is going through secondary succession. As my brother mentioned, we've lived there for 60 years. We are seeing this grow from wet fields to now wet swampy fields and forested lands. Some of the trees, and we're going to see more and more fire risk because the ash forest has killed all the ash trees in there. So there's a lot of risks going on. This is a whole changing environment. We're just trying to look at this at one point in time. We can't. We should look at this down the road. What is it? How does this help the future of our community and of the county, the town, and the locality? Thank you.
Okay, if you still want to think about it for a sec, we'll go virtual. Anybody in virtual land want to make any comments regarding this application? We have 24, 34. Okay.
Doug Finch says he's not seeing anybody. The question was asked via chat. Will each townhome have its own basement? Will the garages all be one or two garages? And that's from Marcia Senges to everyone. Marcia also asked, what is the town of Canandaigua's code regarding extra visitor parking areas? I don't see any additional parking areas on the sketch. Additionally, what are the lighting plans? Many townhome areas prefer not to have streetlights rather than just a porch light and a garage light. What are the developers' plans for lighting? Thank you.
You got this, Brian? Okay, anybody else in the audience before we go back to the board?
I'd like to speak.
Sure.
Okay. Hello, folks. My name is Marty McMillan. A lot of you know me. I've been in the real estate business for about 40 years. I'm not involved in this project at all. I'm not the realtor. It's not my sale. I don't even know too much about the specifics here, but I am here to talk about haves and have-nots. There are many, many developments over the past 4 decades that I've been involved with. Public meetings come up. People express, rightfully so, concerns about what they're seeing. I've heard comments about possible reduction in property values. I've never seen that over the period of time on any project that I've been involved with. Again, I'm not involved with this. But I will say this, This property it is a permitted use. It's a mixed use overlay. It's been for sale for years. I knew the previous owners personally. This project came up. I was curious when I saw a big article in the Democrat Chronicle. Oh my God, the sky's falling. We're going to have a development in Canandaigua. And I want to talk about what's the biggest asset of Canandaigua as opposed to just the lake. We all know it's a beautiful lake. It's a beautiful place to live. I particularly don't care too much for the price of real estate around here or the taxes that we pay. I think it's absurd. And we talk about affordable housing. It's my understanding, there's no definition of affordable housing. What is affordable housing? This community lacks affordable housing. Without the specifics on this project, whether it's an apartment complex, a permitted mobile home park, a shooting range, things that could be used on this particular property that you may not like. Maybe you do like it. Maybe there's some tweaks that have to be done. But it's the people of Canandaigua that make our community and the affordable housing. In my opinion, there's very little affordable housing. There's not a property out there that I've been involved with recently that doesn't have multiple offers on it. Where are you going to go to live to spend less than $2,000 a month on rent? Where? We can sit around and say, oh boy, we own this property. This is going to hurt my value. I don't believe it for a moment. The engineering, the watershed, everything that comes into play will have to be analyzed, whether it's this project or maybe they should expand it into a mobile home park. We need more mobile home parks. It's a good spot for it. But I think that taken away from the opportunity to blame a developer
10
as
seconds.
a bad guy is not the right approach. I think take into consideration, don't be bullied, listen to the evidence, make a right decision, and make it good. I, for one, would like to see not only this development, but many more, so my property taxes can come down.
Marty.
Not go up.
Marty, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Okay, I guess that there's some response from our audience. Yes, ma'am.
Marty McMillan,
We're not getting into
real estate broker
debate,
extraordinary.
but anyway, yes, ma'am.
Taxes.
Hi, I'm Carrie Panisi Hummer. I live at 3510 Sandy Beach
I
Drive.
want to give your name again for the recording.
Carrie Panisi Hummer.
Carrie, can you speak up too?
Carrie Panisi Hummer. Better?
Much better.
I don't think the mic's on.
I don't think the mics are on.
I don't even know how to turn it on, to be honest with you.
I'll try to speak up. Is that better? All right.
Medium shout.
Medium show. Everybody's talked about the safety issues. My husband and I have 6 children and we drive on Sandy Beach Drive trying to get on to 364 all the time. And it's already a concern, especially around, nobody's talked about CMAQ.
Yeah.
When that traffic's there. So I don't know when the study was done, but I highly doubt it was done non-COVID time or CMAQ time. When there's a concert, it's nearly impossible to get in and out of there. So that's just gonna add more. So I'm concerned about my kids driving, and I'm sure there's other people that have that same concern. The other thing is there's a creek, which is the runoff from the development right in between my neighbor's house and my house. And there's already been flooding there, and we are the ones responsible for the upkeep of that creek. And I feel like it's going to make it worse, and we're the ones financially responsible for that. So besides all the concerns that everyone else has said, I just want to note that that's financially going to affect definitely 2 houses and probably other houses around us. So that's what I wanted to get on there.
Thank you. Okay, last call from the audience.
Mr. Chairman, we have Mark Blasey. Dr. Blasey would like to speak.
You have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Oh, good. Thank you very much, Doug. And thank you very much for the planning committee for holding these hearings. I think it's important to hear what people in the community believe with projects like this. I have a particular concern about safety, about runoff on the environment, about the car traffic increasing significantly. We haven't heard much from people on the west side of the lake, but they don't understand, I think, the impact this might have from a visual perspective. A 160-foot rise is equivalent to 16 stories on the west side. It's like parking a Bristol Harbor resort across the lake from the west side and the north end. I can't think of anything good for this. We have ample housing for, the town just approved and built the housing on County Route 10 for people with income challenges. And property like that doesn't need to be on sticking out from the lake 160 feet high. So the visual concerns, the traffic concerns, the safety runoff concerns, and the environmental concerns all lead me to object to the project. But thank you for hearing me.
John, did you get his name?
Mark Blasey.
Remember me to talk to you about that.
Oh,
That's what I thought.
okay, thanks, Mark. Thanks for joining us. Okay, I look to the rear, to the front. Okay, going once, going twice. All right, we'll go back to the board. Any follow-up questions the board may have?
Things on your mind.
I heard. What I'd like to do is have Lance talk a little bit about stormwater, what the town does regarding our our review of the stormwater that's submitted by the applicant, the process we go through to make sure the folks here understand that we do look at this long and hard.
Sure. So the town of Canandaigua is an MS4 community, meaning that basically that they own and have responsibility over the stormwater impacts of the town of Canandaigua, as opposed to DEC, which governs in the most communities. It does not mean that DEC doesn't have a review associated with this project, because they do. So process for us.
No.
Yes, sir.
I think you should stand because those people, I don't think are getting what you're saying. And I think this part is important.
So the town of Canandaigua is an MS4 community. They're responsible for review and regulation of the stormwater associated with every project that comes before the town. Every application that comes into the town is responsible for reducing the runoff associated with the project, meaning that if the project was undeveloped, when rainfall hits the ground and then runs off to the closest port of discharge, the applicant and the design criteria states that when a new application comes in a build out such as this one, it would be responsible for reducing that runoff to a point where when water hits the ground, it's being controlled on site, mitigated on site at a lower rate than what it was prior to development before it can leave the site. So what we have to do as part of that review is, one, make sure they're meeting those minimum requirements. And Brendan mentioned earlier, design up to 100-year storm event. That's the size of a waterfall event that could occur. That's what DEC requires us to regulate them, every development for. So when an application like this comes in, we obviously have to make sure first and foremost that all runoff from the site is being contained on site in a form that holds it back, that stores it on site, and the regulation requirements that follow the DEC highest level required of them. And then we also have to make sure that water quality component, that there's infiltration, that there's storage being done in a manner that allows for the water to, the quality of the water to be enhanced prior to it discharging from the site. So when, and if any project, every project from the town's perspective that's required, the theory is that the project should have little to no impact associated with drainage if and when approved. Because of the fact that it's supposed to be holding back water and runoff at a lesser rate than if it wasn't there. There's mechanisms that we have to look at. There's green infrastructure, that's drainage swales, vegetation swales, bioretention, that's soil media, that's infiltration into the ground. That's going to be a huge component of this application that we have to look at to how and where it's gonna be stored on site, how it's being conveyed from the site in its impervious spots to being stored into a facility such as being proposed, and then ultimately how it's gonna discharge during large events, an overflow example, how that goes and where it's being conveyed to. So as part of our review, we have to make sure not only does it meet the town's requirements, but we have to make sure it meets DEC requirements. And then after we approve it, it goes to DEC for their review. And if they accept it, they would provide an acknowledgement letter, which would grant them a permit. Then they have to design and construct it in accordance with that permit, which then gets regulated by the town and by DEC during the construction process. So there's a lot that goes into the drainage. There's a lot that's going to be required of this. I don't believe this plan that's before us tonight is ultimately going to be the plan. If there is a plan that ultimately gets approved, there's a lot of things that we have to look at and go through. That's going to be a long strenuous process. Please note that DEC was coordinated with as part of this process. So they're well aware of what's going on and they'll continue to be part of that process going forward.
Okay,
Thank you.
your engineering 101, you heard it here first. Quickly.
Yes, you mentioned that under your waterfall onto the property. You realize that the water goes into that property and not facing that property itself and also conforms to the east of the. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, so drainage, every drainage plan has to have a drainage area map is what we call it. And so what it does is it shows the watershed area, what's coming onto the site. And DEC basically regulates and states that any water from offsite can be conveyed around the site. They don't have to maintain it, they don't have to treat it, they don't have to store it. It just can go around the site, but it's got to be conveyed in a manner that doesn't negatively impact offsite areas. But they're not responsible for containing it and treating it. Now, there's some applications that do because it makes more sense. Ultimately, as part of this review, that most certainly everything that we're going to be looking at is what can we contain on site, what can we possibly allow to go around the site, and hopefully not negatively impact those projects.
Brennan, in the interest of time, sir, real quick.
All right. You say that you can go around the property,
Offsite runoff.
outside runoff. The problem with that though is if you just shoot it around that property, it doesn't get into the filterization.
Correct. So that's
What happens,
something.
it comes down onto my property and it's a mess. It hasn't been filtered, it hasn't been slowed down. So what happens, we get more water.
Mhm.
So he talks about that property value is not going down. If I'm flooding all the time, my property values are going down. And that's been a problem for all up and down Sandy Beach.
No, I just want to make it clear, our goal is to not flood anybody. I say our goal, as part of our review, our responsibility is to make sure that drainage first and foremost is being compliant with the town's regulations and requirements and DEC's regulations requirements at the highest level, which means there shouldn't be any flooding. That's what we have to mitigate for. So that's the goal as part of this review, is to contain everything that they're responsible for on site, store it on site, so that when it does get released, it's meeting the criteria associated with the design. And then anything that's being routed around the site, if that is the case, we have to make sure that it's flowing positively and not negatively towards the properties.
2 seconds. What happens if they don't do
Then,
that? Then what?
so they're out, in order to get, I don't want
That's
to,
my proper pitch out there every spring. My neighbor's down, it's got 5 years of water. That's from the college property. I mean, same thing.
ultimately, we're required to review their plan to the highest level, and that's what we're doing.
Okay. All right, again, in the interest of time, Brennan, rather than getting into response at this point, you just consider what was said tonight regarding a couple of the issues. I think you took good notes as to what the concerns were. Certainly incorporate those in any subsequent plans that you'll be working on. And I would ask the board one more time, anything that you want to follow up with some of the residents' questions. And once that's done, we'll move on. Anybody else? Anybody from the board? Bob? You have anything?
That's what
I just want to, one question I guess for Brennan. I want to first thank the public for their comments and concerns and brought to us tonight. It will be incorporated into our review and assessment, along with all the other information that's still forthcoming about this project. But I wanted to ask Brennan, I guess, I don't know what you've got, your proposal is 29 units here, followed by, I think there's a total of 11 single-family homes that will continue up through 18. What was the rationale for that design? And why didn't you decide to just have multifamily homes all the way up? Or why didn't you decide that that would be a good place to have single-family homes scattered through and all the way? Why the mix of single homes and townhomes? Rationale that went through in developing this design.
So the rationale of the design was really based on the property layout. As you go further up into Hopewell, it's only a 200 foot, approximately 250 foot wide lot, which really will support the 4-unit apartment building and dedicated road. The other things that came into consideration is, some of the view shed on the lower apartments that aren't going to be seen. You're really not going to see them from East Lake Road, from the lower stuff. Everything above that slope area in the middle, you'll have a view of the lake. It's not going to be a huge view of the lake, but a view of the lake, which will help beneficial for those residents. The 2 residential houses on the east side of Van Dyke Road, quite frankly, that those may be sons of the developer that would own those. So they may be personally owned, not sold. And as you go up further up in Hopewell, you're single family residential, 1 acre lots. Makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, nothing else? All right, folks. Brennan, I heard this evening a concern that I have also regarding that spine road and maybe looking into not only getting it up to standards to meet complete streets designs, but also traffic calming was also mentioned as a possibility. I know you're proposing crosswalks that are raised, which may tend to slow traffic down, but I think there's other techniques that you can use to with offsets and so on and so forth. It is a straight shot, that road. That was a concern we had, I think, back on the sketch plan. We had talked about maybe putting a couple curves in it to slow folks down. But at the very least, we've got to have some sort of traffic calming, and that we'd ask you to consider that. We obviously want to see the traffic study that was prepared. It's not in our current file, but that's something we need to look at. I mean, on that spine road, we can even think about and consider, and certainly it would help with your marketing, a landscape median possibly. That would certainly have to be considered and approved by the highway superintendent. We talked about lighting. I know you have a photometric plan in the package, and we'll certainly look at that and make sure that it's dark sky compliant. Let's see what else. Bike and pedestrian trails. We didn't really talk about too much. I know you proposed a system. I don't know how that system is related to our town bike plan in terms of connections. If it connects, can it connect? Make it an integral part of our bike system, our trail system. And that's something we want to look at. We talked about the trees on the site, trying to protect them, especially where they're clusters, if we can somehow work around them, not have a clear cutting. In making the building pads, if they could be surgically created rather than just going in and starting at the spine road and cutting the swath so you can put 2 buildings in at once. If it can be strategically constructed, that a lot of those trees could possibly be preserved. And all that being said, I think we're to a point where I will inform you folks that we will be looking in the coming month. We'll be looking at reviews from MRB on the current plans. Our town planner will do a review, checking for compliance with both our zoning and our subdivision regulations. Our code enforcement officer will be looking at the plans regarding building code and fire code. Our highway superintendent, we're looking at it from both the street and water system perspective. I know you've been in contact with the county sewer district. They want to see detailed plans. Be nice to hear back from Hopewell or Gorham if they have any thoughts on this. They've certainly been invited to respond. We haven't seen anything yet. And I think, Sean, I might ask, in the interest of trying to review the plans, that if we could get hard copies for this one application of the plan, it would make it so much easier to review the plan rather than looking at it on a computer screen. It was a real challenge. And I would ask that your resubmission include hard copies.
And I was gonna say, Sean, if you could mail those to me. Generally, I don't. The other thing is, maybe I missed it in the submission. I didn't see a full map of everything. Hopewell, Canandaigua, the road all the way through one long road. I saw little pieces of it here and there. Our code specifically requires, all adjoining parcels owned by the property owner.
Yeah. Did they
or
do,
developer.
the overall plan sheet does have a conceptual plan that shows the overall design of the road going through. The overall, just
With the plan
With the plan
development on there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got that.
Maybe I missed that one. See, that's why we need hard copies.
Okay, I am going to entertain a motion to, excuse me. You have a question here? No. We're going to entertain a motion to continue our hearing to August 24th. Where we'll reconvene and pick up our discussion. Review any new plans submitted, any new referrals that we receive from reviewing agencies. I know the county planning board has looked at it. Kevin Mulvaney, as we stated previously, has he been talking to you, Brandon? Have you been working with Kevin? Okay, that would certainly be helpful. Is there anything else the applicant would like to say before? Real quick.
A comment on a few points. My name is Sal Tardalo. I'm the attorney for the applicant, for the contractor. I'm also the son of the developer, my dad over there.
Oh.
I heard some grumblings when it was mentioned the developer's son might want to build a house up there. When I looked at the project, I tapped him on the shoulder, like, can I get first dibs at that lot? I put that in. I plan on moving here with my wife and kids. I'm gonna be living behind the project. So now obviously we want to make this something that's going to be compatible with the land. Protecting the lake is going to be another priority. I'm not going to get into the details of it. And then another point I just want to touch on as far as the traffic is concerned, I do see that being big area concern as far as left turn lane is concerned. We're not for or against putting it in. It's, as Brendan mentioned, at the end of the day, that's up to the state. We can't put a turn lane in without the state's permission. They have to direct us to do that. So, we're not partial to, not if we don't want to put it in. I just want to make that clear, it's whatever the state decides.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will point out, Mr. Chairman, all the updated documents the chairman just referenced, there's going to be new comments coming in. They'll all be available on the Town of Canandaigua's Planning Board website. And all the members of the public are encouraged to check back there to see updated comments, updated plans. And you can submit written comments. I don't know how they do that.
I just want to make sure everybody is aware and know where we go from here, where we're going. I mean, does everybody feel comfortable that the process is progressing in due earnest, but also procedurally following the code? And I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable with that. So if I don't hear any objections, I will make a motion that we continue the hearing to August 24th. Same time, same place. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll take Amanda's second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Bob. You're out there.
Amanda, you voted in favor?
She did.
Just want to make sure you had 3 full votes there.
Gotcha.
And Bob.
Don't forget that.
Okay, folks, again, thank you for showing up. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Have a good summer.
Thanks, all.
We aren't gonna be able to.
Sure.
I was. Right, that's true.
You look familiar. Yes, Pat, how you doing? I'm all right. I'm saying, I'm looking at you. I'm saying, I know that. You're getting younger looking. You should have never retired. Yes, yeah, I enjoy it. Well, we love the area. Of course, Cindy, when Cindy moved here, she was the attraction. We wanted to see. Yeah. I heard Sally's retiring now. Oh. Yeah, tough year.
I actually don't even know if I need one anymore. That's just, I want to get comfortable. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize, but you guys need to unmute yourself. We had to mute you.
We're live online.
Now we can hear you.
Let's go. We'll double back to Aurora Solar, representing John Akey, owner of property at 2890 County Route 10, seeking a special use permit and a single stage site plan approval for a large scale solar system on the property, represented by Dave Plant, the applicant. And let's see, I don't know if we need too much information from Dave. I think a lot of it's been submitted. You've been more than responsive to the review letters. I know you responded to MRB's recent review letter. Have you gone back and looked at David's response?
So I've gone through and done what we considered a cursory review of all the responses to MRB's comments being the time frame that we received it. I have not had a chance to finalize my review.
Okay.
But I will say from the response letter and from what I have had a chance, it appears to me that a lot of our site plan related comments have in fact been addressed in the plans. That the decommissioning operation maintenance comments and questions that we had questions on appears to be going towards that direction as well. Ultimately, prior to any signatures on the plans, assuming we go that direction, obviously we would encourage that. And from previous projects that I've dealt with, I don't see there being any issue with us applying MRB's letter and making sure that the operation maintenance plan, decommissioning plan meet the town's criteria.
And you generally have a condition that the Canandaigua town attorney approve those as well prior to signature.
That might be, so I do have an.
Okay, well,
And I only do that once Lance is.
we have a number of resolutions to consider. Let's start with the seeker, then we'll go to site plan, then we'll go to special use. So if you could, walk us through the seeker plans.
All right, so with the seeker, we did a coordinated review. We started on May 11th. The coordination, I'm trying to look for the date where it ended. And I don't recall where the 30 days end, but the 30-day period has come and gone. We did not receive any objections from any of the involved and interested agencies that were coordinated with. At this point, the board so as long as you guys are comfortable with, our next step would be to declare yourselves lead agency. As long as you're willing and able to go through and complete the next step, which is the seeker parts 2 and parts 3. Typically, we don't go through and declare lead agency unless you're ready to make a determination due to the time clocks that ultimately occur. So if this board is willing to go through and complete the environmental record for this project, I would suggest the first step would then be to declare lead agency status and then do it.
They don't pay you. I don't believe it. Good night.
You're getting good exercise, Doug.
Thanks.
So the first step would be, because there's no objections, as long as the board's willing to make a decision on seeker, you would have to declare yourselves lead agency first. That'd be, so that's in order that I gave it to you, that would be resolution number 1.
And then we move on to the actual,
Put it in the same resolution. It's better this way because you can do one of the other. You know what you're saying.
so we have a part 1 submitted by the applicant.
And that part 1 was part of that coordination package that went out and was signed and went out. I think we've reviewed it several times now with the board at a couple of meetings that we've had. I'm not trying to speak for you guys. I'm just pointing out that we have looked at it at several meetings. I don't believe there were any specific changes or requests to modify it as presented, but that's up to you guys.
One question.
Please.
On part A for outdoor lighting.
Answer is no.
It's a negative.
On to then, unless Gary-
It's the one thing that I want to make sure is I'm still confused is the right word. I'm not totally there in terms of the final resolution on the little corner that's supposedly a wetlands area. And I want to understand that the final determination of that.
Cut it off. I think that's hackers, right?
Well, there's been multiple.
Yeah. Yeah, let's, I guess, Shauna, let's not go to video under any circumstances.
Can we open up the site plan if and when you can, Shauna?
So that's because I thought I read in here that there's still discussion going back and forth between DEC or the Army Corps of Engineers, as whether that's a prohibited wetland area, and if so, you can't do anything in that area. Even, I can address that, pile, drive piles or whatever, drive pilings into the.
The short answer is you can do anything in a wetland as long as you get a permit from the Corps and or DEC. It's not necessarily prohibited. So we've already gone to that step and requested a permit, submitted a full application, a copy of which has been provided to the town, or joint permit application to DEC and the Corps of Engineers. So we are under a 1/10 of an acre of permanent impact, so we didn't have to submit a pre-construction application or an application to the Corps, but we did so anyway, just so we could have that letter, that permit back from them. We're under the threshold. If you're under a 1/10 of an acre, you typically don't have to even apply for a permit. We also went to DEC because we have temporary impacts to wetlands that are over 1/4 of an acre, so we're required to get an individual water quality certification. The letter that's in your packet from DEC, we have a notice of incomplete application because they cannot act on that permit until you can issue a neg deck. At which point they will issue that permit.
Right.
So I know it sounds a little chicken and
Yeah, I know.
you cannot issue a permit in this state without secret being completed. The Corps is a federal agency, they're not bound by that.
And the town through the review did require a jurisdictional review be done, which was done and entertained. And as Dave mentioned, they've already submitted the permit application to the Corps to get that permission, to obtain that permit, which technically speaking, and as he referenced, they're under the threshold. So when you're over the threshold, you're obligated to get an approval and a permit. And then a lot of times associated with that, you're obligated to do mitigation. This is under all those thresholds where they don't have to, but they still requested a permit just to get approval to allow them to do this work, even though it's not required. And just for clarifications, Dave, has that letter of approval from your review with Army Corps been provided yet?
No, they are backlogged. So
Right,
we are
that's my
currently on their 45-day clock expiring at this point. Well, they have 45 days to act on that.
Thank you so much.
So typically, we've been having to see that sort of say, your 45 days are up. We want you to, say that, okay, you can go ahead with the project, and they've been doing that, just because they're so backlogged.
Right. So a potential option for us, if the board is concerned with that, would be to condition prior to issuance of a permit, the response from Army Corps would be provided to us that basically grants them the ability to do that disturbance, even though it's not technically required.
Any way affect the seeker?
It would not.
It would not, so, okay, so it's involved the site plan.
Because they've already quantified it, showed it, and provided a permit for it. So all the mitigation measures associated with it have already been identified on the plans.
Okay, so then we accept part 1, we have to talk about part 2 and 3. Then we will move on.
Did they do lead agency?
Site plan, do you want to do these in order?
So
Ship them away,
again-
or- I have a feeling we're gonna act on site plan and special use, so.
Okay, so
Do you wanna take
what I would suggest then is the first step to get it out of the way would declare yourselves lead agency. Chris has yelled at me for not putting it in the same resolution, but
By
I've
making a
always,
motion and then a second for the one that's for the lead agency declaration.
All right, so I will make a motion to just take out the candidate of planning board, designate itself as the lead agency for this particular action. Say site plan, special use permit,
Large scale solar.
Large scale solar. Motion, second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Amanda. We'll have a motion a second. Questions? All in favor? Aye.
Now you guys,
Now we go into.
so now you're, yeah, exactly, you're the lead agency that gives you guys the ability to complete the environmental review and record for this application. Which at this point would consist of going through the part 2 that was drafted and forwarded to you for your review, which is, sorry to say this, but we have to go through it line by line, basically.
For those that answer yes.
Right.
So
Correct.
Chuck, either you can take them through or I can ask the questions and you guys can answer them.
Why don't you take?
1, impact on land. The proposed action may involve construction on or physical alteration of the land surface of the proposed site. I think we can all agree that that's a yes. Now we have to determine for subparagraphs A through H, whether there is no or small impact or a moderate to large impact. Go ahead and shout it out, and if anyone disagrees with the consensus of the board, we should discuss. The proposed action may involve construction on land where depth to water table is less than 3 feet.
No or small?
No or small.
These E2D references are to.
The part 1, yeah, so I was just gonna reference this. So some of these questions, like depth to water table, if you look on page 11 of 13, it gives you the soil, it gives you the depth of water, it gives you the bedrock depth. Those are sometimes that's where the references go back to.
B, the proposed action may involve construction on slopes of 15% or greater. No. C, the proposed action may involve construction on land where bedrock is exposed or generally within 5 feet of existing ground surface. D, the proposed action may involve the excavation and removal of more than 1,000 tons of natural material. The proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year or in multiple phases.
One phase, right?
The F, the proposed action may result in increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal, including from treatment by herbicides.
Small, but.
Small
Controlled
impact.
by ENS plan.
G, the proposed action is or may be located within a coastal erosion hazard area. No. H, are there any other impacts that the board would like to bring to the table for discussion? 2, impact on geological features. The proposed action may result in the modification or destruction of or inhibit access to any unique or unusual landforms on the site, e.g. cliffs, dunes, minerals, fossils, or caves.
Right.
3, impacts on surface water. The proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies. I think this is a yes.
Correct, yes.
A, the proposed action may create a new water body. No. B, the proposed action may result in an increase or decrease of over 10% or more than a 10-acre increase or decrease in the surface area of any body of water. So no. The proposed action may involve dredging more than 100 cubic yards of material. The proposed action may involve construction within or adjoining a freshwater or tidal wetland or in the bed or banks of another water body. No. E, the proposed action may create turbidity in a water body either from upland erosion, runoff, or by disturbing bottom sediments. No or small impact. F, the proposed action may include construction of one or more intakes for withdrawal of water from surface water. No or small impact. G, the proposed action may include construction of one or more outfalls for discharge of wastewater to surface waters. No or small.
There's no wastewater.
H, the proposed action may cause soil erosion or otherwise create a source of stormwater discharge that may lead to siltation or other degradation of receiving water bodies. Is that a small impact? Can we all agree?
I can.
Yes.
The proposed action may affect the water quality of any water bodies within or downstream of the site of the proposed action.
No.
Small impact. J, the proposed action may involve the application of pesticides or herbicides in or around any water body.
Grass seed down, putting grass seed around in that area.
If there's areas that are
Fertilizer.
disturbed, yeah, if there's areas that are disturbed, yes, but trying not to. use
What's
fertilizer or, pesticides on the O&M plan.
Small. K, the proposed action may require the construction of new or expansion of existing wastewater treatment facilities. No. 4, impact on groundwater. The proposed action may result in new or additional use of groundwater or may have the potential to introduce contaminants to groundwater or an aquifer. I believe that's a no. 5, impact on flooding. The proposed action may result in development on land subject to flooding. I believe that's a no.
No.
To be clear, some of the reasons for the no's that were provided, I just want to reference this for the record, is that in the EAF part 1, when you plug into locations into the EAF map, we've gone through it, it automatically checks. And so flooding wasn't an issue identified. So I just think it's important because sometimes people look at the wetlands and say flooding, but there's no documentation of flooding in this area.
Impacts on air. I believe that's a no. To state regulated air emission sources.
No.
Impact on plants and animals. The proposed action may result in a loss of flora or fauna. Yes. 8, impact on agricultural resources. I believe this is a yes pursuant to the part 1. We're gonna go right down. Stop me if any of these are no or small impact.
Why is that an impact on agricultural? The land wasn't deemed even agricultural.
No, I agree. Oh, geez, Chris. Chris is just
read.
I think Chris just messed
So
up.
did I just get overruled there? And this is a no? I,
No, it,
It's not agricultural use, right?
I would agree. It was a test.
They provided a statement that did not have agricultural.
Why are
That
you
was,
listening to
that was
me?
my error. That was my error. You got clicked on and it didn't meant to. So,
We'll allow you one.
thank you.
So is there an impact on aesthetic resources? The land use of the proposed action are obviously different from or are in sharp contrast to current land use patterns between the proposed project and a scenic or aesthetic resource.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
Wait,
That's where I'm going from.
So is there anything visual?
wait. Proposed project and a scenic or aesthetic resource. Are
Is there
we,
anything in there that would be
is this
considered?
impacting any scenic or aesthetic resources, guys? That's the question here.
I don't know that it is.
There is?
It's not, I mean, it's not one of our.
I would agree.
scenic views.
There's no vista that I'm aware of.
It's owned
Yeah.
industrial.
I agree.
Oh, yeah, then you're good. No.
Yeah, so I think that's a no.
Impact on historic and archaeological resources. The proposed action may occur in or adjacent to a historic or archaeological resource.
Get kicked out of the- that's where it's-
Yeah, so this one is in an archaeological sensitive area, so that's where it automatically gets deemed EAS for that purposes. But I believe you have done a study in the area, is that correct?
Yeah, we consulted the SHPO and in your file, it should be on the project site. We have a no effect letter from SHPO.
That's what I remember.
So that gives you a
I
no.
think that's a no.
Are we all agreed on that being a no? Impact on open space and recreation. The proposed action may result in loss of recreational opportunities or a reduction of an open space resource as designated in any adopted municipal open space plans. This piece of land on which this proposal is located designated as an open space resource in any town adopted plan.
I don't believe so.
Right, land.
We're gonna go with a no.
Horses will have no.
But
Dick.
could it be, but let me push this.
Yeah.
The proposed proposed action may result in a loss of recreational opportunities, that first part of it. I mean, if somebody decided to say, oh, that's a great spot to
Play soccer?
put a go-kart racetrack in there for recreational purposes, they already got the track around there for the dog, for the horses.
Seeker is in the eye of the beholder. You can, so the, no.
We can leave it yes, but just and then check.
So the answer to that, Gary, is if there were a planning board member who wanted to make a, say, stink about that, yes, it is, because there might be a go-kart track there. We'd go with yes, and then you go down A, B, C, and D, and I think you'd find that each and every one of them would be no or small impact. Yeah.
We little behind.
Kind of attends farther.
The does have in the goal to create an outlet water.
Oh, yeah, no, that's definitely, you guys have been working towards that goal.
This is far, yeah, that's just, yep.
Yeah, but you've tried to get that on the outlet. Impact, yeah.
So are we in
that's a good
agreement
idea.
that that's a no, or is this going to go to a yes?
It's gonna be a yes with the.
Okay.
I'm gonna say yes.
Okay.
Let's go.
A, the proposed action may result in an impairment of natural functions or ecosystem services provided by an undeveloped area, including but not limited to stormwater storage, nutrient cycling, or wildlife habitat.
No.
B, the proposed action may result in the loss of a current or future recreational resource.
Gary's point, small.
Small.
I agree.
Okay. C, the proposed action may eliminate open space or recreational resource in an area with few such resources.
No.
How many go-kart tracks? How many go-kart tracks are in that area?
No.
The proposed action may may result in loss of an area now used informally by the community as an open space resource.
No.
I think that's correct. Impact on critical environmental areas. The proposed action may be located within or adjacent to a critical environmental area. I think your part one says no.
Yeah, it's not in the.
The
code, so
CEA is
there's no
defined
critical.
in New York State environmental conservation law, and this regulations there too. And it would have to be identified in the EAF part one.
It's not.
I'm enforcing the 3 minutes next time. The proposed action may result in a change to existing transportation systems. I believe that's a no. Impact on energy. The proposed action may cause an increase in the use of any form of energy.
No. No.
We're supplying it.
Right.
Oh, an increase in the use.
No.
Okay, you're.
No.
Why'd say no, Bob?
Because it's not draining on our grid. It's getting to the grid. So it's not a drain to us.
Yeah.
It's not a taker, it's a giver.
Right. So when it says cause an increase in use of any form of energy. So what that means is the increase in the energy means a draw of energy, right? Is that what that's
Right. And as a result of this project, would that occur? Would
No. So the answer would be no. Okay, I'm with you.
There may be an increase in the use of energy, but this isn't causing it.
That's not what we're talking about.
Impact on noise, odor, and light. Yes
I'm
or
gonna
no?
say slight. I'm gonna say slight.
So if a yes, and we'll go through and see whether it's.
Hold on, let me create a box for Slate.
The Bob box. Proposed action may produce sound above noise levels established by local regulation. I'm gonna go with no or
It's
small.
not above.
What is our regulations for noise level?
I don't think the town of Canandaigua currently has noise specific decibel. No decibel specific noise regulations.
You said it was 65, the rotation
what the
panels, something like that.
decimal was at.
It's 69 for the inverters.
69, okay.
About 79 for the tracking. That's about the noise of traffic. Yeah.
Right.
All right, so.
No. Proposed action may result in blasting. No. The proposed action may result in routine odors for more than 1 hour per day. No. The proposed action may result in light shining onto adjoining properties.
Activity of that, those sun hitting the panel and reflecting off into somebody's window. How does that happen?
I mean, usually, I think we talked about this one of the previous meetings, is, the intent of our solar panels is to absorb as much sunlight as possible.
Yeah.
So every photon that bounces off is money lost.
Great.
So, the reflectivity is equivalent to a pond on a still day, basically, no different than that. And, we have put in, plantings along the county route there. So, if there is any perceived glare, they will be mitigated by those plantings there, but it's only for the first few hours of the morning where even points, they turn as the day goes on. So they're facing the south, which is a solar farm, and then the east, the west, which is the forested parcel. So there's really no issue. As far as glare.
Chuck, Chairman Chuck.
Yes, member Bob.
Bob, thank you. I can't see who's talking. Who is talking for?
Oh, it was Mr. Plant. Dave Plant.
But I'm not gonna answer this one and ask that you guys disagree with me or agree with me. I'd prefer that this one in particular, you guys answer yourselves. And then we can. Proposed action may result in light shining onto adjoining properties.
No, nowhere or small.
Okay, and I heard Bob say that as well. E, the proposed action may result in lighting, creating sky glow brighter than existing area conditions. I'm gonna assume that's a no. Impact on human health. Contaminants from new or existing sources. Are there any of those? I believe the answer to that is no. Consistency with. Is electricity a contaminant? Consistency with community plans. The proposed action is not consistent with adopted land use plans. I believe the answer to this is no, unless
Yeah,
anyone
I don't know.
disagrees. The plans, this is very consistent with our current
is.
plans and I believe with our upcoming future plans.
100% agree. I don't know why.
The proposed project is inconsistent with the existing community character, the community character being a bunch of solar farms. So I would assume your answer is no, but
Well,
No.
yeah, the fact that we have regulations controlling solar.
Yeah.
I think that shows that we are encouraging.
All right,
so
so
that being completed, somebody could make a motion.
one second, because there are no identified large impacts or moderate to large impacts, there's no additional information needed to complete your part 3. So
Part 3 just
it's a summary,
summarizes what we just said.
right,
here.
summarizes your findings, correct, and does require signature, but only after you guys complete the secret determination of significance resolution, which should be the next resolution in your packet.
So you want to move on to part 3 and then do the.
I would do the resolution and then we can sign the part 3 for as long as you don't have any
Yep,
changes.
you got to do the
Is
resolution
there anything in
first.
part 3 that, in part 3? John, I did the convene the hearing, by the way.
For the record, once assuming we sign off, I will update the part 2 and complete all these forms and resend them in as part of the resubmittal. And then ultimately, this would be published from there.
Are the board members comfortable with part 3? As written.
What, Chuck?
Good, Bob?
Okay.
All right, then I will go ahead and make a motion to declare determination of non-significance
Yes.
For power solar, single stage site plan, seeker associated with single plan, single stage site plan, special use permit for large scale solar energy system, 2890 County Road 10.
There's a motion and a second.
Second.
I'll take a minute, a second. Any further discussion on the seeker? If not, all in favor? Aye.
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 All right, so
Hearing
that,
none, motion carries.
now you can sign the part 3,
Thank you, Lance.
and then I'll take that signed part 3 from you. I'll, yeah, yep, correct.
Is there anybody for this application on the, other than Carolyn? Are there any members of the public?
Just the back, Chuck, and then I'll take that from you.
You could make probably both of these motions or these SUP and site plan jointly
I only need the 3.
and not go
Part
through the
3.
conditions
Yep.
unless you want to.
We can do that. Let me just go through a couple things to make sure we cover all our bases. We're looking at a set of plans last revised July 6th. Correct? So that will be the plans of record. With approval, that's what Lance shows in the resolutions. The county planning board recommended approval after a thorough review. The ECB reviewed it on 4/13. They had some concerns about the buffer on the north side of the property and insurance that we protect the wetlands. The north side being the side up toward the fairgrounds. That's an issue on the north side, but that was the ECB's concern. Jim Fletcher had a concern about preserving the water easement on the frontage, but setting back the landscape buffer. I'll mention now that I talked to Jim, when you provided that rendering, the first thing that hit me was looking at the frontage and having the fence out in front of the trees, the land buffer. I said, Jim, we gotta be able to move that fence behind the trees so that the trees are actually seen from County Route 10. And he said 30 feet is not possible, but he could live with something less than that. Because I think he had said 30 feet from the edge of the easement to the tree line. Or the tree root. So whatever it takes to put the fence inside the buffer with some. Does the board understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right here. I thought you were gonna say, 'cause my first reaction was, are they gonna actually be yellow posts? That was my first reaction. So, yeah, that fence ought to just kind of blend in as
Yeah,
much as
no,
it
it is.
can.
It's more of a wood image. We provided a
that's
photo
nice.
log earlier on that shows actual photographs of the fencing. This is, I mean, we can only do so much with the technology, but for the renderings, but they won't be yellow.
They're not gonna be yellow
Wood
stakes
fence.
like that around there, no.
So, yeah, if you could make it non-yellow stakes and inside the buffer
Inside the tree line.
tree line, that would be certainly a request I would make regarding the site plan.
Hey, Chuck, I had a question on that.
Sure.
On that rendering on the trees, I just want to confirm that those initial trees that are going in are going to be 8 feet as they stated.
Yes, that's what's in our site plan.
So approved by the town engineer and
8 feet, 8
Mhm.
feet around the top or 8 feet bottom of the wall.
8 feet from the ground to the top.
Okay.
Thank you.
That'll look much.
Yeah, I did like the rendering though. That was very
And I guess
helpful.
looking at that, I mean, we talked about the surface of the array. Could it come in black or smoke or something, the actual panels themselves, rather than a mirror or a finish that we've been talking about? You would think you want a dark surface to absorb as much. Just, if that was a dark surface on those panels, it would really blend it. Would you consider, I mean,
It
talk
has no
with
bearing
Caroline.
on the actual panels. It'll just be the change to the, so that they're not blue panels, But we can make it more photorealistic.
Okay. And I realize they rotate, so this is the way they'll be facing in the morning, and they'll be completely 180 degrees of heat.
So
Okay,
you're saying that isn't the color of the panels under any circumstances?
Yeah, it's more just the sky. I'm trying to, show the sky. That's on the-
well, it could be a smoke or darker color. We appreciate it. Okay, I am ready to move with the site. Well, we're gonna do both, that's right.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure with special use permits, we do have a statement of operations. We have a revised O&M plan dated July 1st. David, you were going to include a list of emergency services contacts in the O&M plan.
Included a list
Mhm.
of those agencies, but.
Were they in the O&M?
Yes.
Oh, were they? Okay.
They submitted a revised.
No,
Yeah, that-
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure we're there, so we know who to call. Construction schedule is on sheet CO1. That needs an update, I guess, to reflect decisions made this evening. Decommissioning plan. is
Sorry,
last
say that one
year.
more time.
The construction schedule. It's on plan COO1. It had dates.
Yeah.
Okay. The decommissioning plan submitted June 1st, revised July 6th, and it's MRB looked that over to make sure.
Yes, so the decommissioning plan, we had some comments on it. We'll still have some comments on it, but they're moving towards getting approval. It's obligated to meet your special use permit criteria. It's in our review letter, correct, as well as the decommissioning estimate that they provided.
We've confirmed that there's no loss of agricultural land, which is a requirement of the providing an array. We confirmed this, it's compatible with adjacent land. We confirmed it meets the objectives of the comp plan. We confirmed that it meets the building code. The security fence is 8 foot high. And we talked about moving it behind the frontage, landscaping. Sound abatement, noise analysis. We talked about that tonight.
Good night.
So anybody have any concerns on noise, sound?
This is Bob. I had the problem with the noises, but they submitted their numbers. And if their numbers hold true, they should be fine.
Okay, I'm only going by a seminar that I attended that Dave was the presenter, and he said, make sure you get your sound and noise.
At least you listen.
I listened.
Well, Chuck, also, this is the first time we've done panels that rotate.
I'm going to.
You're right.
So it's totally new to us and new apparently to the company in the United States. So I just want to make sure that there's known that there's noise associated.
Okay, and your SWIP, you're reviewing, that's part of your review letter.
Correct.
And we did not hear from Town of Hopewell at all in this
Nope.
application.
Correct.
There'll be no sign except for the warning signs that you had mentioned previously. We talked about the herbicide. Is there a phosphorus in it?
I added the phosphorus notes to the site plan conditions. In case I missed it. I didn't think I saw it in the plans, but
And the last thing I know is those 4 utility poles. I guess they're a fact of life.
They are behind an existing tree, so that's.
Okay.
And that's shown in the rendering too.
Yep, yeah, they're fortunately all in one area, so.
Behind this tree.
Okay.
And that's RG, they control that, not us.
Understood.
Your solar
Okay, I'm
panels up
good.
above that.
I'm ready to move on to the rest of the board.
The only thing that I'll mention, I mentioned one before, I'm concerned about just mowing or keeping the vegetation, the grass around, in and around the panels maintained. And your latest revision to the operations and maintenance plan still didn't say how you're gonna do that. It still opens it up to even providing, having sheep rolling in there, which for some reason bugs me a little bit. I'm not sure
Well, then,
that's there. So
then dictate that as a condition of approval. How many times of summer do you want it mowed, or a month, or a week?
I think it ought to maintained to, I think we have standards in Canada, don't we? And it can't be
Yeah,
10 inches or something like that.
but I think that that applies only to residential, I think. In an industrial zone, I don't think you're subject to those. I know you wouldn't be in an agricultural or like in certain, I mean, there's obviously 10 inches higher of grass. What do you want it? What do you want the max? Should not exceed 10 inches under any circumstances?
Yeah, I think I'd be happy with that.
Does that make sense? Can you do that?
That's our residential.
Well, I mean, one thing for the board to also remember too is that we're proposing, pollinator species under the panels and whatnot. So by trimming them too often, you're negating the positive agricultural effects of providing pollinator species of plants. So, I mean, we do want to keep it, the bottom of our panels, from the bottom of the panels to the ground is about 1 foot 6 inches. And so we don't want it to get any higher than that, obviously, for shading purposes. So if there's a happy medium in there, where we get pollinator benefit, but also
What are you pollinating?
for bees. Our seed mixes have been picked. It's a seed mix that's friendly to bees and other pollinators. For honey production, not like whatever else bees want to do.
And that's
You
typical.
guys are
that's-
nodding like that's a
typical what
good
we see.
idea. That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's typically what we see everywhere. And most of them. I would ask that the board, if they're not open to sheep, that would be, because that's gonna come from MRB's letter too, is that I'm just gonna, that option, if they ultimately want to have a sheep option, then they would have to come back in and get an approval or an amended approval from you guys for the option, but at this point.
So let's go with this, add a condition that says, vegetation shall be maintained in such a manner that it can, shall be maintained in such a manner that it appears neat and orderly. I don't know what we're looking for, if it's. Hello.
Currently, how often do you guys anticipate mowing the site? Every month or every 2 months? Okay, so that's the question. Are we open to once a month or twice a month, or do you want to just make it once a month? Mowing?
Or do you want to say
it
10
more?
inches?
I think 10 inches, the hard part with 10 inches, in my opinion, is that it requires somebody to go out there and measure it.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. It's just when it gets to be, when Gary drives by and says, that looks awful, he can call the code enforcement officer, who will then have to go measure, say, no, Gary, it's 9.5
But if
inches."
there's a number of times required to mow, what typically happens is that an inspection, some report gets generated from the solar company. That report then gets forwarded to the code enforcement officer. Code officer says, okay, for the month of March, it shows that they've mowed twice. That's in accordance of the operation and maintenance plan and conditions of approval. If it's a measurement, then they're obligated to go out there, obviously either A, based on some complaint, or B, going out there and monitor more frequently to determine that.
Or are we concerned about the height from a aesthetic standpoint or a health and safety?
I think both.
I mean,
Probably both. My initial thing was an aesthetics perspective. Just
well, I think as long as.
Vermin get in there and.
Well, that's the health and safety issue. But on the other hand, if it's below the panels, it's no higher than what you'd have if it was hayfield, yeah.
That's true.
And as long as it's not sticking above the panels, that would,
defeat the purpose.
ease my mind as far as the aesthetic side. But, whether we have critters running around under, what do we have at the other locations? I think they're.
Public's not going in.
The other locations are set up very similar to this.
Similar to this.
Yes.
All right, I'm fine with as proposed. I don't think we.
Some of the residential ones, the ones that we've had a couple of residential as
Yeah.
of other communities, those are maintained differently.
Yeah.
But
That's.
the other two on this site, I think, are very similar to this.
I can see an issue with the other ones, Gary.
Not that I know, not that I.
Other than we got some panels, that's a buffer issue.
So why don't we just say that, I'm reading, general vegetation, maintain, trim, interface time to time. I'm okay the way it is, I just didn't like that we're considering utilizing sheep or other animals to graze and
Yeah.
maintain.
No
Why don't
sheep.
we just say?
No sheep.
You know, it shall be maintained in accordance with the plan, but without utilizing sheep or other animals.
Yeah, I'll have a statement that they remove sheep from the operation and maintenance plan.
Yeah, Lance can deal with that as part of his engineering letter.
Okay, good, then I'm okay with that.
Good catch.
Thank you.
It's a great idea, though, the sheep,
Right, it's not.
but
There's
it's just a little
there's process
unrealistic.
for it. So what we're saying is that, my understanding, what other communities have said too, is if it becomes a legitimate option, they present it back to you guys as an amendment.
Great.
Okay. I think we're ready to move on, and as mentioned by our solicitor, we can handle both the site plan first and special use permit second.
I do have one question. I have one change and one question. The decommissioning plan, I had identified as July 1st. Is it July 6th? The last revision date? I don't recall. You know what? You have a sheet here. I printed out. I may have missed the date. Just says July. Yeah, I thought the PDF said July 1st. The SWIP said July 6th. Right, okay. That's what I'm gonna go with. And then if I need to change it, I'll double check
I think it
again.
was posted on our site July 6th.
Okay, so because I referenced the date in the conditions and I just wanted to make sure I caught that. Second one is on both site plan and special use permit. They're different numbers, but they deal with the same element. It's the decommissioning surety. It's currently being required per your conditions by MRB group review, town engineer review. We're adding town engineer and town attorney review for the decommissioning estimate. So in both conditions of approval, that was the change.
Okay,
Now, just looking, we got 20 conditions on the site plan, and we have 22 conditions on the special use permit.
Special use permit has two specific ones that deal with code compliance requirements, which are standard for our special use permits, site inspection in accordance of section X, Y, and Z. They're requiring them to go out course of a year prior to issuance of a special use permit. The officer failure to take corrective, it talks specific comments as it relates to special use permit. The site plan one, all conditions from, I believe, number 2 down on the site plan are in the special use permit.
Usually we put them both.
Yep.
They're both in place.
And then in special use permit, you have 1, 2, and 3, which are different. And 4.
And the phosphorus notes,
And the phosphorus notes were added to the site plan.
the site plan, but they're not in the special.
I most certainly can copy everything over. But those are the differences. Some of the special use permit ones are not applicable to a site plan. Yes, sir.
The town engineer and town attorney review the decommissioning estimate.
Correct. So on the site plan,
Which number is that?
yep, on the site plan resolution, it would be number 14. The special use permit resolution, it would be number 16.
okay. And one last thing before we make a motion, the findings are up to date. So the planning board granted a waiver from the landscaping buffer requirement?
Yes, that was discussed first on. I believe there's a code requirement that says they have to have a certain number of feet of buffering. And I think due to the
Yeah.
existing vegetation, it was waived.
So that's in the,
When we first had this dialogue, I think it was one of the first meetings that got brought up, that due to the existing vegetation, there wasn't a need to buffer that side with additional landscaping. Therefore, it was suggested a waiver. You're correct. I don't think we've
You
officially
haven't waived
it.
You would be waiving it by.
We
this
should
motion.
identify that.
resolution.
No, in the
No?
findings.
Oh, just put it in the findings?
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as the boards, I mean, You guys tell me if you think.
He's not
it's-
trying to make the decision for you.
Yeah,
Just-
I just recall we had dialogue and the reason
Yeah,
was is the
no,
existing.
I know we agreed to the way that I just, where we had to make it
Sure.
memorialize it. If the findings were fine, we'll stay with the findings, assuming the board agrees. Okay, so I will entertain a motion for both the site plan and the SUP.
It's Amanda.
I will make a motion and we are okay to bundle.
Yes, ma'am. Not usually, but
Okay, so for the record, for people on the phone, I'll make a motion for site plan approval and special use permit approval for CPN 20-010 Aurora Power Solar with the conditions as discussed during our correspondence here today.
So before Amanda made that motion, I did close the hearing, so that the hearing is closed. So we have a motion and a second from, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Gary, motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Dave, thanks for your cooperation. You were very,
Got it.
very
Thank you,
responsive.
everybody. So when do we start? When do you get breaking ground?
you okay if I
Soon as
take
we
off?
get through Lancaster
Sure,
County.
yeah, I think.
If something comes up on these, call me. I'll be in the car, but I don't think you need me here.
Yeah, I'll send
I'm
them.
gross.
Yeah,
Without the air
100%.
conditioner,
I'm gonna try to
soak
get it
to
out
my
tomorrow.
shirt in a minute.
I have to get the resolution
Yeah.
out to town tomorrow, but I'll try to make sure I get everything to you tomorrow as well.
Thank you.
That's what that was.
It's nice to see you.
All right, thanks for having.
Nice to see you.
Let the record show
Bye, guys.
our attorney left at the,
Drop the mic.
okay.
John.
Getting punchy, guys. All right, we move on real quick. Marathon Engineering representing FJ Morel. It's a very quick recalling of a resolution that we passed at the last meeting. And we will adopt a new motion to consider the planning board as the lead agency for the Morel project regarding secret. So we would be rescinding and
Revoting,
and
You did not pass it last time.
correct.
Just no action. was
there's
taken.
No action was taken. No
action.
official
No
action.
official action. No.
Right. I read the minutes, so
Yep.
I know what would happen.
So just to be clear, the board at this moment would, if voted upon, would be declaring their intent to be lead agency. And we would be conducting a coordinated review under the seeker bylaws with the identified involved and interested agencies. And for the record, the involved agencies as identified previously were the Town Highway and Water Superintendent, Ontario County Planning Board, New York State Department of Health, New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Canandaigua Lake County Sewer District, Canandaigua Lake Watershed Council, and Canandaigua City Fire Department. Those were the identified involved agencies, the agencies they have standing or an approval for the project. The interested agencies were identified as SHPO, or the State Historic Preservation Office, Ontario County Agricultural Enhancement Board, Town Environmental Conservation Board, that's Town of Canandaigua, and then the Town Agricultural Advisory Committee. And I thought, yeah, the town board through dialogue, I believe, was also added as an interested agency.
Okay, so I need a motion to.
I will make a
reaffirm that.
motion to declare the intent for the Canandaigua Town Planning Board to be the lead agency for seeker on CPN 21-052.
Okay, a motion, got a second?
Second.
Second from Bob. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The vote was 4-0.
Yep, and just for the record, this was continued to your August.
Well, right now we're on record as the 13th, but I think That won't get you into 30 days. will it?
Did we really say August
I
13th?
think
Because the
we-
10th is the first meeting in August
10th.
and the 24th
Well,
is.
it was originally to the first meeting in August. And
I have
think
the
now
gears.
we'll have to push it back.
Yeah.
That clock starts the clock now, 30 days from today.
So it was continued to the August 10th meeting for the public hearing was, which regardless, we wouldn't have had 30 days in that process. So same scenario would occur here. We continue the public hearing, continue the application. You guys could have dialogue on the application. You could take public comments on the application, but we wouldn't be in a position on August 10th to make a decision because the 30-day window hadn't elapsed yet.
Sean, didn't you inform Jeff we would probably push to the 24th? We could open it on the 10th and just continue to the 24th.
I think, yeah,
Without-
just because we continued the
Because
public
we-
hering.
We're still within 30 days.
Yeah. And if anybody shows we haven't, then you continue
Yeah,
it,
it's
same
not-
process.
On the 10th, but.
Yep.
All right, there'll be no further discussion on Morel time. So let's move on to our 2 site plans. Patient people. You folks missed all the excitement. Oh, you did? You watched? Oh. There was no room in the house. All right. First, we're going to take up Marathon Engineering Representative Daniel Gill on our property 4495 Davidson Landing Road. Mr. Gill seeking a single stage site plan approval for the addition to a single family dwelling and associated improvements. Mr. Gill was successful in going to the ZBA and getting relief on the 15th of June for the building coverage. And all that being said, is Lucas?
It's Lucas. yeah.
Lucas, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Lucas Bushin from Marathon Engineering, 39 Cascade Drive. Here on behalf of the Gills, for the Gill Residence Project. I'm joined by David Hanlon Architects. He's the project architect. And he'll talk briefly today if we have time about the structure. And also Debbie Gill is on Zoom. And she may say a few words too. If it's okay with the board.
Hi, Debbie.
We may have Justin Hamilton in the waiting room. Yeah. Justin Hamilton is the project construction manager. He's mentioned he's in the waiting room waiting to get in. So yeah, he's in.
Okay.
Okay, so the project is essentially to reconstruct the residence at the property on Davidson Landing. Davidson Landing is a private drive, a handful of properties on the west side of the lake, just off of West Lake Road. The existing property has a small cottage on it, more like the size of a guest house. It's 700 square foot. And there's a full-size tennis court on the property. So the Gills and their family have owned this property and the adjacent property to the south for decades and wanted to create something more usable on this property. So the plan is to demolish that existing structure and build a new one in the place of the tennis court. So we're sort of positioning it to minimize disturbance, minimize any impact to the existing vegetation and topography of the site, and also to minimize the creation of new impervious developed areas. As you mentioned, we went to the zoning board and we've been, yeah, there's the site plan. So that's the shaded area is the home. And it includes a lot of outdoor spaces too are within that. So it's not entirely enclosed. There's some covered patios, some entry areas that sort of tie it to the property. You've got the associated driveway with the improvements and the pickleball court. Overall, in the project, the impervious area on the site is going down, it's being reduced quite a few percent. And that was achieved by eliminating the existing guest house. And as I mentioned, sort of positioning it thoughtfully to maintain the green areas. There's a pickleball court so that they can stay active on the property. And we'll be updating the dock area as well to sort of match the architectural improvements of the property. So Debbie is on the line. I'll just let her quickly introduce herself to the board, just say a few words about the Gill's history on the property and what they're looking to do with the project.
Hello, how are you? Debbie Gill, 4495 Davidson Landing. My husband Dan and I have been going to this property for over 35 years. His parents owned this property and the property next door. And we've known the neighbors, we've been there, as I said, for 35 years. And so we really understand what that street represents. And we're trying to keep very much in with what's appropriate for that street. And hoping just to make a house where our family, which has grown now to large sizes, can go there and enjoy our vacation as well.
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. And also as part of this project, the Gills have contacted the neighbors and made them aware of the project and the timing. It's a good community down there on Davidson Landing. If the board has time, I'd like to give David just a few minutes to step you through this building that you're
Sure,
seeing.
it's certainly an interesting building.
Yeah.
Tell us about the grass roof.
Yeah.
With sheep up there?
Good evening, board. So David Hanlon Architects, representing the Gills. And they requested something that was, a little more contemporary in style. Which lends itself actually to the building height requirements because, they're tough to achieve 25 feet with some of these sites. So the style that they're looking for, as well as the town's requirements, kind of went hand in hand. And also in trying to get this building coverage down as tight as we could. The building coverage is actually under the town requirements. It's just because we have some horizontal nature to the roof overhangs, the porch, and that's where the variance came in. But we mitigated that with that green roof, which is over the large porch that faces the lake. But otherwise, it's just, it's I hate to use the word contemporary, but everybody kind of knows what that means when you say it. And it has a lot of natural materials. We show a natural wood. It might be cedar. It might be a different material that has a, pre-finished quality to it for better maintenance. But there'll be a mixture of wood and stone and glass, some metals. But to keep the building kind of down low and horizontal in nature, and also natural materials, so that it settles into the hill. Of course, Davidson Landing, you're probably familiar with it. There's a hill that just rises up behind it. So it kind of settles into the landscape there. And that's just a quick summary of the project.
Very nice.
Yeah, thanks, David. So obviously what these renderings don't show is the landscaping that's going to be not only existing and preserved around the property, but proposed to enhance the property that'll complement the natural materials that you see in the building. Those natural materials will be repeated throughout the site. A lot of the walls around the site or the retaining walls, you might call them, are really not retaining walls. They're going to be sort of landscape boulders to sort of create a natural look across the property. David mentioned building coverage. We talked about lot coverage, doing everything we can to get those down. And the stormwater will be treated with a rain garden. So we're reducing the impervious area. We're incorporating that green roof that mitigates impervious impact on the property. And then what's left, every piece of impervious area will be discharged to the rain garden. And that'll help to further improve the stormwater conditions. So not only are we reducing runoff by reducing impervious, we're treating it well there with the rain garden. And the Gills are also incorporating some geothermal elements to the heating and cooling of the home. So that'll add sort of an environmental improvement to the project.
Is that shown on the plan where the field would be, the geothermal, or is it out in the lake?
No, it won't be. That's not on the plan yet. It'll be on the building permit plans, how that'll be achieved.
It won't be.
Yeah, go straight down.
I know, yeah, I go straight down, but just the area of influence of where are you thinking about putting it on the lot?
It'll be straight down under the home.
Oh, under the home?
No, to the east of or north of the house, near the pickleball court.
Oh, near the pickleball court.
Thanks.
Yeah, because I guess the area of influence of it is, no, vertical, it's not horizontal, so,
Yeah, so.
but just make sure you know, don't go through septic systems or any utilities or anything.
Yeah, the drive is on sewer. It is a sort of a in between private and public sewer. So we'll be maintaining those connections. Actually, currently they're joint connections with the neighbors to the south. So we'll be fixing that up. That was part of our conversations with Jack Braun and in the county is resolving those issues. So there's water and sewer available connecting to those as the property is currently connected. Same with electric. And
Talk a little more about the landscaping. Do you show a schedule at all for your landscaping? I'm trying to recall looking at so many plans on it.
yeah,
A couple days.
but there hasn't been a exact schedule on the plan just because we're calling out where the plantings are going and the general type of plantings that we're proposing. But the final materials haven't been selected yet. So, yeah, I intend to provide one to address that comment.
Yeah, because obviously you're very concerned about shoreline guidelines and making sure they're complied with. I know you've got a lot of existing trees that'll aid to the meeting those standards. I know you're taking one tree out that I guess has become infested with some sort of ivy or something.
Yeah, there's a bacteria growing on the, so where you see the two new plantings, those are going to be
Replacements.
replaced because those trees are not only in a compromised position.
And you
but-
got a couple trees coming down for the driveway.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
so-
on the northwest corner of the property.
Okay.
So those will be a maple species or a honey locust to match the other trees along the shoreline in that area.
Or do you have any concerns about the shoreline? Or see?
Yes, yeah, that thing, that showed there, my only concern, I think that I had was, and I don't know from the lake, if you're gonna, how much of that pickleball court you're gonna see. And I was just wondering if there should be some plantings
Plants in front of
on
the fence.
the, east side of
Yeah.
that pickleball court.
That's one of my notes.
That was kind of the only thing that I'd like, maybe some shrubbery or something along that pickleball, so you're not just looking at people
Yeah.
playing pickleball all day.
Yeah, well, Gary, I was down there and that tree right there to the lake is pretty massive also. It's a huge shade tree right there too. My concern on the pickleball is how the water is going to run off of it.
Yeah,
Okay, that's a good point.
if I could speak to those. So yeah, the tree is really low hanging as well. Not only is it massive, but it's low hanging. So it does provide that visual barrier on that corner of the property. And the pickleball court is being collected with two inlets on the southern side of it. And those inlets will discharge to the rain garden to treat that water.
I think you have a beautiful property there. I've talked to contractors that worked on that road. It's going to be very difficult to work contractors. That's the hardest thing on Davison Road, from what I understand, is contractors in that narrow road. That'll be fun.
And I assume you would do this work probably all season, the building of the house? Because I think that's usually a request that the neighbors make, that you don't have construction equipment and, running up and down their road when it's
Right.
on season.
Yeah, the goal is to start construction later in September and then construct the home over the winter. Do the landscaping in the spring and then be ready to go for 2022.
Yep.
Can you talk more about what you're doing down by the lake there? How much of that is new? How much is existing? How much of it is repair versus replace? What's going on down there? And also, this is more of a, I don't know, just from a, I'm not sure if legal is that the opinion, but it appears that there's work being done on two different properties down there, the joint. Do we need to have another permit from that other property that's gonna be? Do we need easement? Do we need what, how do you, that's the whole thing is concerns me.
So I talked about this with Chris Jensen.
Okay,
So the work on the neighboring property, which is the sister's property, is just providing her another stairway access to the lake and offsetting that by eliminating some stairways that she has on her property. That will be a separate permit. And the way he wants to handle that is that it does not rise to the thresholds of a site plan. So we're showing it on here
but it's gonna be the
information.
same location, is it, you kind of replacing the stairs?
There was a
Is that-
stair there in the past, yeah,
Okay,
that was removed at one point. And so in order to make both of these properties sort of function on their own, they want it back. So they're
Okay.
gonna give up some other stairs but that'll be its own building permit application. It's just shown sort of informationally on this plan.
which is good, which I
Yeah.
like. Good, okay.
You're talking the dock area in terms of what's happening down
Oh, yeah,
there?
that whole area down there, there's a lot of,
You mean the shrubs that are.
Well, I'm not-
like snaking around.
I'm not worried about the shrubs, I'm just worried about, look, the retaining walls, and is that all new?
Okay.
Or is
That-
it being repaired, or?
It's all existing, it's all there today, it's all timber retaining walls. And the idea is just to sort of update those with some stone and natural materials, some updated landscaping.
Okay.
And yeah, and those steps are sort of starting to wear out, they've been there for a while. So the idea is a similar access down to the lake with a stairway and some sort of terraced landscaping.
The rain garden is new, right?
The rain garden is new, yes.
But everything else is just kind of referred, repair.
Everything else will be updated and new materials.
Okay.
Yeah. The deck that's sitting up there will stay and that'll be updated as well.
Is that rain garden, I know we have sometimes concerns about the outfall or the overflow of the dry well being too close to the lake, that it would surcharge and go right into the lake, and we try to keep it somewhat of a distance back from the lake, so you run overland before how close is your surcharge or plunge pool, whatever you want to call it, that when the rain garden fills up, it would overflow?
Yeah, I talked about this with Colin from MRB. The discharge, it's probably about 10 or 15 feet that it'll run through a rocky, a riprap along the.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, you can
Right
see
over
it
the
just
top.
below. It's tricky here because the bank is so sharp.
Right.
You don't really have a lawn area to discharge on the low side. So we're going to be accomplishing it with a
Riprap.
permanent erosion control measure and slope protection.
And a filtration.
Yeah. And it'll be controlled by the outlet of the rain
Right.
garden itself.
And all your roof drains go into the rain garden.
Correct.
The roof is, Dave, is what material?
It'll be primarily a metal roof.
Okay.
And some of the flares, so it's low slope metal, and then we have some areas that are flatter, that'll be rubber or EPDM. And then, yes.
Oh, Brian would be good. He'll be glad to hear that.
Yeah, no shingles.
We always question whether asphalt roofs, what problems they can cause to the lake. All right. Anybody else? Bob, you have anything? Amanda? Further on this?
I said everything I need to say. I was out at the property. It's a beautiful piece of property. I see that they changed their plan. They were gonna add to the existing structure. So I guess with the coverage, they took that off. I think the house sits better now. Yeah, it's a really nice little property. I'd like to see the landscaping plan, how we normally see the renderings.
Okay. So you would still like to see that, or would you be willing to offer it as?
I think we're good now. I mean, as long as they put those two trees out front, I think I saw Debbie's head saying yes to some of the landscaping around the pickleball court too. I think that should be something like that would be fine. It's a beautiful house. I think sits in there really nice.
Okay. Then we'll move ahead.
I'm good, yeah.
Just for the record, the county planning board, as usual, recommended denial, so we had a supermajority. The county sewer district had questions about the grinder pump to the 4-inch sanitary sewer. I assume you saw comments on that. The ECB back on May 18th had questioned lot coverage, which was the issue. Well, you said the lot coverage essentially
Being reduced.
reduced.
Yeah.
They asked if any porous pavement could be used in any application. I don't see where it could be applied in any great detail. I mean, you're not creating that much pavement, it's mostly building. Yeah. Chain link fence, you got that around the pickleball court. It's 4 foot high on the sides and 6 foot high on the ends. So that's acknowledged. We got the fence, the downspouts we talked about, the trees to be removed and replaced, we talked about. So I think I'm good. Anything I would mention, if Debbie, if you would consider possibly in the demolition of the house, offering materials to restore. Because I'm sure there's materials that can be reused. They would be looking for materials, construction materials, building materials. And we usually mention that to applicants who are doing a tear down and rebuild, that they consider offering those materials to restore out on County Route 10. And MRB, you had the 622 letter, so you've got that covered in your
Correct.
conditions.
As we have Jim's comments as well.
So I will, we can bundle, it's a type 2 seeker. So we can bundle the seeker and the.
Yep, I'll make a resolution declaring seeker resolution declaring a type 2 action and recommend a resolution to approve a site plan for Marathon Engineering representing Daniel Gill, 4495 Davidson Landing Drive.
7.
Subject to the 7 conditions for the resolution.
Is there anything added in our discussion?
No, I know one comment was retaining wall. That was a comment in MRB's letter to get a little more detail. One comment was on landscaping schedule. That's also a comment in MRB letter that a landscape schedule be provided. The only additional condition, if suggested, was additional landscaping along the pickleball area. Is that what you guys are asking for? And if so, that should be a condition.
Yeah, why don't you include that along with the schedule? The landscaping schedule, which Lucas said they haven't provided yet, but we'll provide. So we know what's going where. Okay, any further discussion? Is there anybody out in TV land that would like to comment on this? I didn't open it up to the public. I don't think there's anyone here in person. If not, we're ready to move on. I have a motion from Gary. Did I get a second? Bob second. To approve with the seeker and the site plan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, guys. Okay.
You guys.
I think by process of elimination, you must be the miller. Yeah, wow. Somebody's got to be last. It's been a long night. So is Brennan going to be here too? Is he online? Right.
He was gonna.
Oh, there's Peter there.
Peter's here inside. Peter, can you unmute yourself?
Okay, so we're looking at a CPN 21058, Marks Engineering representative Donald and Monica Miller, owners of property of a yet to determine address on Cox Road. And the Millers are seeking a single stage site plan approval for the construction of a new single family dwelling. And if Peter is going to carry the ball on this, Sean and Peter can discuss it.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Peter Sargis. I'm representing Don and Monica Miller.
Excuse me, Peter, just a second. What was that, John?
I didn't know his last name.
Oh, Peter, you want to give us your name, Peter, again?
Yeah, Peter Sarkis with Marks Engineering, representing Don and Monica Miller. I can screen share here if you guys need me to pull up the plans. I'm not sure if you got them over there or not.
I'll pull our plans up.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
All we need is a site plan, I think.
Yes, I've got your site plan.
Yeah, so we're looking at a new residence, right before the corner of Hickox Road and Bliss Road. It's a recently subdivided parcel. It's about 12.5 acres of vacant farmland. There is an existing barn in the lower corner that services another portion of the property. And there's also a DEC wetland located in the south west region of the parcel. What the Millers are proposing is a single family home. It's going to be a 3-bedroom house with an attached garage, patio in the back, and an agricultural barn as well. If you scroll to the next page, that actually shows it in respect to the whole property, but the next page will show the actual plan itself up close. Yeah, that'll give you a better idea of what we're looking at. They would like a new conventional subsurface wastewater treatment system. So we've done perk rates out there. Everything's looking good. We did a deep hole test. And yeah, we've accounted for stormwater runoff, trying to just move the water away from the home. And they'd like this additional gravel drive because they'll have to be pulling in equipment and they'll need to turn around in that drive to back that equipment into the barn essentially. Yeah, I've also got architecturals from Morabito Architects out of Pittsburgh, New York. I don't think they're with us today, but can give you a good idea of what the house looks like if you'd like me to screen share that. And yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have about the house.
I'm not sure I can do that without-
Also, Don and Monica, if you'd like to introduce yourselves, you can come on and just say hello. Totally up to you.
They're here. Hello. They're shy.
Okay.
We kind of rushed here, so I don't have the site plans
Oh,
or the site plans with us. But it's ranch style, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathroom home,
Single story, so it's
single story.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Peter, I made you co-host for momentarily, so see if you can share your screen.
sure.
I'll stop sharing.
All right. So if you look here, we've got a view of the house, all elevations, each direction. Yeah. And if you'd like any specifics, I'd be happy to talk about anything in particular.
Siding colors, that we have neutral like siding, is it cedar shake or what?
We're gonna do vinyl siding. Dark blue or dark gray,
Just
we're not
something,
sure.
yeah.
We have possible builders that were
No
obviously.
bright pink or
No.
anything like that, right?
No, and. Yeah, it's.
I think Don will allow bright pink.
No.
Doesn't match with the farm. So the existing barn you have out there in the corner, is that being used or is it continue to be
Yeah, we
used?
use
Or
it.
how do
we use
you
it-
get to
Our
it?
farm uses it.
Okay,
Are other properties gonna have to access that barn?
No.
so it's on your property and
Your
your barn.
property, you're the only one that has that other barn, just you.
And how do you get to
Okay.
it? I'm sorry.
There's a-
Currently,
Well, right now, we use a driveway coming from the neighbors or through it as a right of way through their, the neighbors, but at the moment,
so with this what you're doing here, would you be able to get from?
I can just drive, if I want, I can just drive across that field into it.
Okay.
It's just an open.
It's just an, open. Yeah, it used to be a pasture lot. We used to have cows in there for years.
Okay.
And it just sits idle now. So we took sold the dairy, so it just sits there. So
Is there an actual driveway of any sort that goes to that barn? That,
there is around the backside. It goes through my cousin's.
all right. So there's actual driveway that goes
Yeah.
there, okay,
But some other people.
but,
Different property.
right.
Yeah.
So if the cousin would sell and the new owner would say, no, can't
At
use it
that point in
anymore,
time.
they still would have access across his
Right.
own property, I
Mhm.
guess.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
fine.
Figure that out. Yeah.
So you have two driveways, and I guess one being an ag driveway, the other being for the residents. And I think Chris Jensen had responded about two driveways to
I
a
missed it.
single property. Something.
As long as one was ag
One-
related.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it, maybe. One, as long as
One
one
would be
was
ag.
ag, okay. And the one to the home is going to be paved, right, Don? Yeah.
The full driveway?
Yes,
Yep. And the one to the barn will be stone,
yes.
okay?
Except for the portion in, except for the apron.
That was, yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. I see you have a new driveway culvert that'll be installed by
They
the
changed it.
town highway for the house. Do you need a
Actually, I don't know why they're
culvert
gonna put culvert there. It's just flat.
Oh, okay, so you don't need it.
There's no
Right.
ditch there.
So that blacktop can come right
Yeah.
off the road and,
Yeah.
okay, so, but you need it at the residential.
And the reason for the paved apron, I don't know if you were aware or not aware, the reason that is that the town road requires all driveways that come to their roads to be paved surfaces so that the stone doesn't
Oh,
get
okay.
washed away with the winter
Why, okay.
maintenance. So everything that's inside of the right of way has to be of a hard surface, a paved surface.
Mhm.
Everything from beyond that point can most certainly be gravel.
Peter, this is Bob. I had a question. On the picture I'm looking at right now is opposite that what we just saw was the turnaround was on the barn side and not the house side.
Right.
Yeah,
Which one is it?
I think we've actually changed it since then. I thought that we had the same copy here. We originally had it coming out to the right over here. And then I spoke with Monica and Chris Jensen, and I realized that Monica preferred it to be over here for a turnaround for the garage. So that must be a mistake on my part.
So the plan that we have is incorrect. Is that what you're saying?
I'll let Monica clarify, but I believe that this is the design that she wanted here, shown on my screen.
Is that the last rendering?
So
I've seen so
a
many
little bit of
pictures.
both, yes. I do want to turn around as pictured here, but we will also need a turnaround on the other driveway for agricultural farm equipment.
It's like a back in there.
Back,
Purposes.
like Pete had said earlier.
Yeah,
Why don't you connect? Why don't you connect the two? You don't want to?
There was an
I don't
issue.
think you- I think you can.
Do that.
down with that.
You gotta separate the ag driveway from the home driveway.
Because then it would require a variance. You can't have two driveways. So that would be if they're connect now, you have the agricultural use is now tied to the residential use in theory, and therefore it would require a variance. So you have to separate the two.
Thank you.
Only saying how it reads.
But for my instance, though, the plans that we saw on our site is not the correct plan. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yes, you're correct.
Both driveways
Thank
will
you.
have turnarounds, but they will not connect.
Yeah, you're right. You're
Yeah.
right. Bob.
Yep.
Thank you.
Will the two turnarounds, do you think they'll be facing one another, or will the turnaround be facing the same direction? Meaning, will they be so close where you could in fact connect them? Or would you prefer, will it be facing the same
No,
direction?
They won't be
Facing one
I
another?
won't drive on.
I don't know that I have an issue with it. I just was curious.
I wouldn't drive on the other end because the machinery will wreck the asphalt.
Yeah, I mean, backing up
So
that.
you don't want them
yeah,
connected, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So no, they won't be
They're
connected.
too heavy.
Okay, as long as we somehow reflect that the final site plan will show the two turnarounds, the ag driveway and the home driveway. Okay, that's simple enough. We will make you come back for that. All right, anybody else on the board? And any folks in the audience online who'd like to address the board regarding this application? The county planning board had no comment on this, or it was not required, excuse me, it was not required. Tyler had no comments. I guess he's reviewing the septic system with no comments from the ECB. The Ag Advisory Committee said there was no loss of agricultural lands as a result of this application. Nothing from Jim Fletcher. Did you review this? Earl?
I did.
Okay.
We did give Jim Fletcher's comments
Today?
this morning.
Oh, I saw.
And I have a condition. No, I don't. So I do not have, we would have to add him.
Shauna, do you have what Jim?
I do, property owner to pay for water service before town taps the water main. Pressure reducing valve to be installed after the water meter. This is required by code and is responsibility of the homeowner. Water service to be inspected by the town before backfilling, and the town highway will install driveway culvert and stone apron to the right.
Jim doesn't even know his own requirements.
That's your taxes. You're getting a call.
Wait till I see Jim.
That's all SOB stuff. So I don't think we have an issue with that. So
Just for the record, MRB's letter does identify that the portion, the driveway for the ag has to be of a paved surface in the apron. Just letting you guys know.
what was your letter dated?
My letter is dated June 9th,
June 9th. I don't think that was on.
or July, excuse me.
Oh,
Thank you.
That's why. I wondered.
It's getting to that time. I'm sorry.
Okay. So, and you reference it in the resolution?
Yeah, so my letter's referenced in there that covers the apron, but I added the two conditions. One, Jim Fletcher's comment letters being a condition of approval, and then the other one was the final site plans to show that the additional driveway turnaround for both the barn and the residential house.
Are we good? Anything else? All right, I'll take the formal motion on both the seeker type 2 and the site plan.
All right, I will make a motion for seeker type 2 action and bundle that with the site plan approval. for 058 at an undisclosed address at Hickox Road, with the
8.
8 conditions. Written during our discussion here this evening.
Have a motion? Second from Gary. The conditions include the set aside for the park.
It does.
Site plan, okay.
It is condition number 6.
And the motion second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, folks. Are you from the area? Well, you said your brother
This
lives.
is family, our
Their family
his
farm.
family farm.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I've been here.
Oh, Miller.
Miller, yeah.
The Miller.
One of the Millers, yeah. One of the Millers.
All right, sweet. Thank you, guys.
Okay, moving quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Peter. We'll move on to the minutes from the June 22nd meeting. Yikes.
Can't do it.
Can't do it.
No, can't do it.
Yep, just thought that.
Gotta move that along.
Okay, we'll have to postpone that to, so just make sure that shows up on our agenda next meeting. Shauna, we have a full board. Referrals from town board. Hopefully you folks have looked at the comp plan update enough times, as well as the form-based code. And we can sit here and talk about it. I'm certainly comfortable because I've seen it enough times in various committees that I sit in on. Do you have any issues with the comp plan update or?
No, I'm gonna go to that form code meeting Thursday evening, so I'm hoping to.
It'll be very informative. It's
Yeah, that's
a
gonna be a good.
interesting
Yeah,
concept.
I unfortunately will not be available.
Be comfortable after that.
I have just a couple of things I want to say.
Sure.
On the comp plan, not trying to make the meeting last any longer. concrete person.
We had one of those. That needs to get closer to the mic. So, in the comp plan, it references, the city's exploration of racial and gender diversity. Okay, and you know where I'm going, but
Yeah.
I would at least request that the town consider at least being consistent with the city in exploration of racial and gender diversity in light of, especially as it's noted in the plan, that there is an increase in the educated women population over the past 10 years. So that is my request. I did note that there was a huge drop in the residents in the income brackets between 25 and 75 a year. So I think combining all of those and having some sort of assessment, I'm not asking for solve all diversity problems, but at least I would like it to be explored and acknowledged. And in light of the COVID pandemic, and I appreciate the plan, all of the considerations added in after a lot of the review of the planning and everything. I would just like to say, for the record, internet prioritization would be key for our work from home community. Myself involved in that as well as a work from home lifer, always and forever, not just in the pandemic. So that that's just my notes for the comp plan.
Okay, John, do you have those for the record? Okay,
Thank you, John.
I'll certainly pass that along to the board in the minutes, and if you'd like to submit them formally, they have a hearing next week, and if either on behalf of yourself, but we'll certainly make sure it's reflected. I think the board concurs with your recommendations. I know with the affordable housing initiative that the town is taking, we're trying to do better in that regard. And I know it was discussed through the course of the development of the update that COVID introduced a new set of parameters in terms of people working at home, businesses not filling their, their space. And there was couple people thought more should be said on that, but I think there's a paragraph in the comp plan that mentions it, and some people thought it should be a little more detailed than that, but I think as it stands, at least there's a reference to it. So again, your concerns and comments are duly noted. Anything else on the comp plan, Bob, you or the form-based code?
No, I read it. I'm basically happy with it. I'm just, I'm kind of complexed about the solar panels. I think maybe on County Road 10, that's a good spot because now that's where they're at. But I just can't see them all over the town though. That's my thought.
Maybe the ordinance committee can consider a reduction of the areas, the zoning districts where they could apply. Because I know when we created the regulations, it was, okay, where are we gonna put these things? And it was sort of a shotgun approach. And maybe it's time to refine some of those areas. And if you have specific areas that maybe they shouldn't be in, let us know, and I'll pass along to the ordinance committee.
Right, and also we've been asked to respond to the, I can't think straight anymore. Farmland Trust is doing a survey of municipalities on what we have in place for solar and what we're looking for. And I think that there's, definitely concerns about farmland and its effect on solar's effect on placement
On the farmland.
on the farmland. Yeah.
I just don't want us to be the solar farm place.
Right.
Oh, you're not. You don't have to worry about that.
Well, the fact that we don't give them
Livingston County is
payment in lieu of taxes or any type of relief on their taxes, I think that scares some people away. So
Yeah, I wish they would pay us some taxes.
They're
They
not
are.
paying their tax, they should be paying taxes.
They are. You guys don't have the pilot agreement in place,
don't have
so
the pilot.
they would be obligated to be, an assessment would be determined and that they would be required to pay it. But that's been an issue a lot of times, since they don't know how to assess them, so.
Deferred.
No, not to my knowledge.
I mean, they.
But these are industrial sites. Most of them that
not
we've seen, we've had 3 on industrial sites. We've had 2 on residential properties.
All right, well, I know one of the chief prime requirements of a solar farm is it cannot take away prime farmland. And I think that's something that hopefully we look at first and foremost,
I would suggest though,
but there's other districts.
I'm sorry, Chuck, I don't mean to cut you off. Honestly, I work with, I don't know, 55 communities, and every one of them that have a solar law that was previously adopted is going through its second or its third revision now. So I would encourage the town of Canandaigua to go back, not that it's a poorly written law, but to go back and look at it, because you've seen enough applications now to say, where are our pitfalls? Where do we want to enhance? Some of the items that we've been seeing other communities consider as part of this: one, either A, bigger and larger buffer areas. 2, the type of vegetation requirements that you may or may not be looking for in terms of screening, a battery storage, whether or not you want to even permit it or not. What's your law on it? You guys don't have a law on battery storage that I'm aware of. Also, there's some other things that we, through our review boards and us and staff, are requiring them to provide, but it's not necessarily in your code that requires them to provide. So those are.
I think Ryan Stachek had a really good point, and they came out with it that, now they're going to help low income families with this solar farm. That's a good thing for our community. I mean, so it's not just ugly to look at for 30 some odd years. I mean, they're getting some benefit.
Right. So I think if the town was open to the idea, I think what you should be doing is at some point in time, either A, passing a moratorium to allow you guys time to go through and reassess your solar law, update it, because inevitably there's things that have changed either through technology from the time that you guys adopted it, or through plans that you've seen along the way that you might want to consider now going forward. And there's plenty of laws out there. One, just to this point, one new element that we're seeing is commercial solar or large scale solar, as we've seen recently, but it's being placed onto farm buildings. Now, that's probably a better option than in farmland, but it's considered a commercial entity because you're leasing the roof space and selling it back to the grid, and your code wouldn't allow that to happen. You only allow on residential property, I believe, as a type 2 type of review, or whatever the solar terminology, right, minor or farmland, but there isn't really any regulations for the solar panels when they're on a building of that size. I'm talking farm lot size on buildings throughout, and that's how they're doing it. And I think we'd probably be open to something like that because it's not a detriment to the land, but your code should probably reflect that it is something that you would entertain, but with what requirements or not, if that's what you're looking for.
I'm looking for not to see it.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not, I can still say, I haven't seen my energy bills going down.
That's right.
I get it. Where's all that power going?
Sean, is that something you should maybe have the impetus to bring up to the
Yeah, we can
ordinance
even, I
committee?
can
Or
just, at the end of tomorrow's meeting, just mention it to Gary
Okay.
and see if the ordinance is waived.
We'll all be back here
Yeah, we'll be
at 9
back
o'clock.
here
Should we go
tomorrow.
through?
Also, just to note that I've gone through and I'm updating all of the demographics in the plan to get the more recent census.
Good.
So like 2018, just so we have the most up to date. Our plan is to actually do it as another appendix, so we can continue to update. Yeah. Instead of having to update our whole plan. Which is always.
Without re-adopting the whole plan.
Right, yeah. That way we can keep the most up-to-date numbers. This is the actual census, not the American survey, will be out.
Right.
Someday.
Well, as we said before, we certainly kudos to Eric, what he did on that comp plan revision. He did a lot of the legwork, all the legwork essentially, and, without having to hired a consultant, and we got a much more personal result from having him do it rather than having a canned plan that some consultant put together. Okay, moving along. Let's spend some money. I got 2 letters of credit. One from Matthew and Amber Valvano for property on Thomas Road. They're requesting the release of their erosion ENS surety. It's the first and last release, $2,300. I assume we're good to go with everything being done out there, Chris, and
Correct. Chris forwarded out.
okay.
It wouldn't be on the agenda unless it was authorized by Chris first. So in these particular cases, both of them, if you look at them, they're pretty, one's a 19 project, one's a 17 project. So they
Okay.
both been completed and stabilized.
Let's do that one, this one first. All in favor, I'll make a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor to release the money to the Valvanos, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries, and then we've got a request from L&J Lake House LLC for Waters Edge Drive. An initial and final escrow release for soil erosion control of $3,201.60. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Gary, second by Amanda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now down to a unique 100-day extension request.
Can I?
And I will yield to.
Yeah, I'll do my best, and then Shauna, please tell me where I'm incorrect. So this is the one project that had the Eagle's Nest located. Yeah. So there's a process and a procedure for removing the Eagle's Nest, or I shouldn't say removing or protecting it in a manner. So they've been working with DEC on going through that process. That's my understanding. That's kind of why I believe they have not yet sought to get signatures on the plan. So first is their original 180 days expired on April 25th, 2021. So to prevent a lapse in time, the suggestion is approve a 90-day extension that would run through July 24th, 2021. That's where the 90-day comes in. Now, the second 90-day is because we all, I'm making an assumption that they're not going to get plans in between now and July 24th. So the second 90-day would put them to October 22nd, 2021. That would allow them to continue with their review with DEC to get plans in. Now, my suggestion to the applicant is I don't believe any of the conditions restrict them from getting signatures. So I would suggest that if that is in fact the case, they submit the plans and we sign them and then allow them to continue to work with DC. That would give them another basically 2-year window to get going on their project. I don't recall, I thought when I looked at the conditions, there was nothing that was really technically restricting them from getting signatures. It was restricting them from getting a permit. So my thought is getting signatures done eliminates the need for any future 90-day extensions beyond these 2 that are in front of you today. And then that would allow them to have basically an approval for another year. And then if they get a permit, it gives them another year to get going on it. So it's basically once they get signatures, they got 2 years to get going.
Okay, makes sense. Again, I don't think there was anything part of that approval that was costly to the applicant, so.
Yeah, not to
I don't
get
see any reason why
signatures.
so
There might be a
hopefully-
middle misunderstanding in that
hopefully
sense,
we'll
but
get the plans in and we do not have to, well, we frown on 3rd extensions, and it's only under the most unique circumstances do we grant an extension. So let the applicant know that.
When was the Eagle discovered? Since
I think sometime, yeah, before the project
Project came here. When it came
is
for-
part of the,
it came with the application.
Yep.
yeah, exactly. Acknowledgement of the Eagle's Nest came with it.
Okay, so can I have a motion to?
All right, I will
do
make a
2
motion
90-day extensions?
to provide a first and second 90-day extension. CPN 20-062. Second extension to expire October 22nd, 2021.
Thank you, Gary. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Amanda seconds. Let's give Ron Croft 180 days then to apply. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah. Training sessions, I know Michelle had sent out the spreadsheet of where we stand at individually on hours. So take a look at that and catch up where you have to. She also, or I guess Shauna sent out contact information for all the planning board members and staff. So we can have all that in case of get a hold of someone quickly. She comes up. And we have advertised for an alternate member.
Oh, good.
So that advertising expires the end of the month. So I'm sure we got 5, 6, 7.
There's overflow.
So if you have any friends, I mean, you already carpool with Ryan, so Gary, if somebody lives in the neighborhood, you can
Right, you live in the
carpool.
same road.
So that advertisement's out there. And
Then
the
you learn all-
remote participation,
Yeah.
do we have to, I think we have to at some point amend our remote
We do.
participation. Which would apply to not only board members, well, I guess the town's gonna have the hybrid.
Yeah, I think the hybrid thing works well. I think.
Shauna, how do you think it works?
I'm not running it yet, but
We get multiple people trying to hack.
Oh, so advertised, so people knew that meeting
Yeah, it
was
was a
coming.
problem. That was why Doug and I were talking that before.
Well, you kept the videos.
Well, from our perspective, it looked like it ran
Yeah,
fine.
no.
Great.
I just think it's something we ought to, it's just something we ought to provide to the townspeople.
Well,
If they want to participate, they
I
have
think-
the option to.
I think the intent is to continue
Yeah.
hybrid.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have,
Be a better
Just
way
having
to-
rules and regulations.
you guys have always been ahead of the curve in terms of honestly providing this type of a service, which has been nice. So I think, yeah, I think updating whatever it is that the process that you guys are would be beneficial. But I do have a question. Bob, from your perspective, did it work okay on your end?
Yeah, I mean, I could imagine myself as Karen, when Karen was in Florida and we did it with her there. It's just for me, like today when Solar was talking, I didn't know who you were talking to. He should have been at the podium there maybe.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I can see the podium. I can't see who he was. But other than that, it worked fine for me.
Okay.
Good.
Good to
I
know.
mean, I would have been there today, but I just at 5:15 got in from Chicago driving, so I'm a little tired.
I'm surprised you're still awake.
Not out there, no.
How did the sound? How did
I
it
had to
sound?
be here on the meeting, so.
Yeah, definitely.
Bob, did it sound okay from your end?
Yeah, just a little echoey on your side. And I will say, I hear a lot of chatter from Chris and, yep, right over there.
That's why we had tried to unplug you, but I'm learning, I'm figuring it out.
Okay.
The paper shuffling. How about the paper shuffling? Was that annoying?
No, but I couldn't hear Gary. Gary's too soft spoken, though.
Huh.
Amanda stole the light, that's why.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, 27 is our next meeting. We have Mr. Campbell coming back now that he knows why he had to come before us for his home on Menteith. Mr. Block for Rochester Point Road, Single State Demolish and Build. BME for Kennedy Crossing, that's the commercial property out on 332. Scott Turner for property on County Route 16 for a demolish and build. And David Dawson, 445 Middle Cheshire, he's doing a subdivision. And
That was.
I was withdrawn, yeah, Venezia, a.
Which one was done?
Yeah.
We would,
60.
60 with, Pat Rocco, well, was right yesterday.
I'm sorry, I keep missing what one?
21060 was withdrawn.
Okay, well then I will not issue my letter on that one tomorrow.
Okay, so that's what we got coming up. Anybody else have anything? We don't have Ryan.
Just keep going with this, and I know I want to make it quick. So your August, what is it, 10th?
Yeah, it's the 10th.
So I think we have, I just want to try to get these big ones I want to figure out. So it would be Pierce, which is the BME, or not BME, the Morale and Morale project, Pierce Brook, right? And that would likely be a continuation because of what you said. If anything, you would have dialogue. If people are here, you could have dialogue because,
So we're not ready yet.
but it sounds like we might be just continuing the public hearing till the 24th based on other dialogue, because you can't take action on it till 24th, but that works. And then I think what's the other, and then the one that we just had tonight goes to the 24th. All right. We have a long way to go. Okay.
The one week, 24th, yeah. Glad we made it to 24th.
I was
Well,
debating,
wait, that we're gonna have Morel and.
Oh, yeah, we tossed around.
We got two.
I thought Morel was the tip, but it is what it is. I don't think there's any way around it.
Okay, and that Sioux Steel, we saw PRC, that would be the 24th.
Correct, right. Thank goodness we only had one.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, honestly.
Yep.
There's a
Okay.
little bit of light at this.
Okay,
Till next
someone, want to act on Ryan's behalf?
So I will act on Ryan's behalf.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Oh.
You do have somebody online. I don't know if you wanna.
Oh, I
send
do.
her that quick.
Sandra, Monica, Colleen, you have anything?
Monica, they were just here, I don't know why they're, that was the Millers.
Oh,
They, maybe they're still signed on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just didn't know if you wanted to offer it. It's up to you. Chuck.
we
Call
want
it
to
what
get,
you want.
see what it's like, to turn their application into be an alternate member.
Oh,
Okay, Leanna, do it.
I will make a motion to adjourn our meeting this evening at 9:40 PM.
Okay, thanks.
Second.
Thank you all.
All in favor?
Aye.
Go to sleep, Bob.
Good night, Bob.
Good night, Chicago.